Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'd like to call the Monday, June 29th Standing Policy Committee on Public Works to order. We've got Councillor Chambers here, Councillor Eadie, Councillor Sharma, our Senior Committee Clerk, Mr. Prinsloo. We've got members of the public service watching in the room. We've got people in the room here as delegates. Good morning. We've got probably maybe people online. So my name is Janice Lukes. I'm the City Councillor for the Waverly West Ward still, and I'm chairing this meeting today. I'd like to do our land and water acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that we're in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis, and our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. Councillor Chambers, you want to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Right.
Carried. Now, I would like to ask the committee before we get into it, we've got a transit addendum report, item number 20, that was added on. And I'd like to just, if it's okay with you guys, just print it up and add it to be, put it in front of number 7. We'll do transit 1 through 6, and then we'll put the addendum up there, and then the transit folks can reorder the agenda. Sure. Okay, yeah. Okay.
If we could also have a suspension of the rules to add the addendum items.
Oh,
16 through
Okay.
20.
Suspension of the
all
rules.
so moved.
moved to also suspend town councillor Gilroy's delegation.
Perfect. All in favor?
Right.
Carried. Okay, so now, I guess we'll start, we got a full agenda here, a lot of good stuff. So I guess we'll start with our delegates. We'll start with Councillor Gilroy. And Councillor Gilroy, you are speaking to which items?
18 and 19.
19, 18, and 12.
12, 19, and 18.
Thank you all. I know that you got a very crazy agenda today, so a very robust agenda. So thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. So first off, on item 19, I'm going to let the engineers, that is Aaron and traffic safety around Aaron and Ellis. I'm going to let our traffic engineers handle that one. It just needs a little bit of a robust look, so I'll let them manage that one. On item number 18 is a 4-way stop on Downing. And so I'm here because I think I've had this looked at before. The administration says it's not warranted. I disagree with them at this stop. Just so you know that every single street that goes north and south in my area from Notre Dame to Wellington all have 4-way stops. It just really makes sense. The community's been asking for this for a while. The 4-way stop is more than just traffic calming. It also allows the students that are going to Tech Fock to be able to cross, or people going to the field to be able to cross. So it's just really, it's building the same consistency that we have on the other streets. It just makes sense. The community wants it. I know that for our traffic engineers, they feel like 4-way stops don't traffic calm. However, I think in this instance, it does make sense for a lot of different features, not only the traffic calming, but the consistency within the neighborhood on where the traffic is. It could help kind of not make traffic go on the one street, because like all the other ones do have 4-way stops. They also would allow the students to cross safely and the community to cross safely. So that's my pitch on that one. And then I just wanted to talk about the speed reductions on Arlington. The community knows that it's not going anywhere. It was a request to traffic calm the whole community. That didn't work. The reduced speeds to 30 on the whole community. But this is a reduced speeds on Arlington, south of Arlington, just to connect with item 12. To connect with the Greenway. And I guess my pitch to the community is, we did do it. Transit's been really, really good. This committee's been really, really good at actually trying to solve this issue around shaking and, the speeds. And so I want to thank Transit. They're not in the room, but I know they've been doing a lot of work regarding this. They've been out and they've actually been kind of doing that little gun radar that looks at speeds. And it's not really like other people are speeding along this corridor. And so it does affect the overall impact. And that includes, actually, it was interesting. It was also the buses that were going down that were maybe speeding higher than 30 were the buses going that were for kids, right? They're school buses. So I just really want to do a pitch that this makes sense, that this be added as part of that greenway to slower the speeds. Slower speeds in our area is more than just safety. It is just the calming impact of a community that really uses this area to walk. They don't have the natural trails in the community, so they use their streets to walk. And so the reduced speeds does a lot in terms of just overall livability for my community. So it's just a big pitch. I know it's a hard pitch because it is looking at a street speed reduction, and we haven't really gone there yet. However, I do think that this community are in and around the greenway is where it does make sense. So that's my pitch.
Okay,
So, yeah.
okay, so, committee, are there any questions or comments from our delegation here? Nope.
Thank you.
Okay, no, wait a minute, I do.
Sorry.
Okay, so, in regards to, 19, we've got 18, clerk looked and he said he didn't find any study on a four-way stop on Downing and Yarwood Avenue, okay? So there's been other issues, that Downing pops up, but no four-way control stop study on Downing Street at Yarwood, so.
I asked for one, I think I have an email somewhere from somebody that was looking into it.
Right.
But yeah, happy, if you
Okay.
want to do a study on it, that's
Sure.
fine. I'm
Sure.
willing for that, yeah.
Okay, and then in your report 12, speed limit on Arlington. So they did do a study, right? They did do a study and they found that the speed limit's 50K. They found the average speed was 36 southbound, 38 northbound, 37. Like on page 8, you see that they're not speeding.
Well, some of them are and some of them aren't.
I know.
It depends when they come, and for me, when I see the radar, so I naturally slow down. So the community is I get constant emails, Councillor, so the community is identifying that this
Right.
is still remaining an issue.
Right.
And I know transit has done a lot of work, but I also realize that in transit's work, they are seeing that others are speeding. And then reality is that even though we did the speed reduction of the bus
Yeah.
along there, which I really, really value and appreciate, it isn't a law, right? So, police still don't ticket or whatever. We do what we can to mitigate that through transit and work with those folks that are driving those buses. But at the end of the day, it's, it would be nice if we just really made this a speed reduction and it just connects with that greenway.
I know. So I have had a couple streets exactly like this where, your traffic volume's 3,600, 3,200 vehicles per day. I've had streets like this and same thing, the average speed is under the 50K, but 3% or 5% speed. And when you think of what is 3% or 5%, it adds up to a number, right? Like 10, 15 a day speeding, right? So they won't budge on it, but I mean, we can ask them and see what they say, but they did do the study. The app, this is a good chart. Maybe you could say to your residents that,
I'll definitely share the information with them. When I did share the information,
they don't
they
care.
were
I know.
adamant that the buses were speeding, and so I have to and I have been there and I have been on site when I have seen it. So I have to respect and honor the wishes of my community. And just in lieu, I guess for me, I think that where we could maybe look at speed reductions, which would be good pilot, is these types of communities where there is close greenways. And I really think that when we've added a transit bus, clearly when I put the motion forward, I wasn't the only one, right?
Yeah.
Other streets came up. So it might just make sense that these these are slower streets, because you also see the pattern that sometimes you see is that they'll see a bus, right? And they'll want to kind of get above.
Yeah,
There's parked
beyond
cars,
us.
right?
Jump
There's-
the line,
Yeah, there's parked cars, they're trying to juggle, so
yeah.
it just makes sense. And then when you are on that bus and my house shakes, so I know, when that bus is going faster,
Yeah.
regardless of city bus, whatever bus, or a bigger vehicle, could even be a truck, your house is shaking.
Yeah,
And that's the reality.
yeah,
And and I know Public Works is also looking, thank you very much, looking at doing, a
resurfacing.
resurfacing of that, which is really appreciated. But just doing what I can to
I know,
mitigate
I
all
know.
this.
This is why we need like the flat out speed reduction citywide personally, but,
Yeah,
okay, Councillor.
maybe
Davis.
that's something, I know that, you're being asked, and maybe that's something.
Oh, yeah, I'll continue hammering the
Yeah.
problems, exactly.
That's coming
Like,
up
listen
next
to
week.
me.
That'll become a delegation.
Anyway, that's coming next term.
Okay, Councillor, what did you say? What?
I agree with you
Yeah.
about reducing the speed limit, but
Yeah,
that's
just
coming next term, right?
Yeah, well, I doubt it, but,
Well, as far as I know.
well, no, the province, it has to decide now if we're gonna reduce the speeds, not up to us.
Well, they should be able to decide quickly. Anyway, I have a question just in regards to, did you say four-way stop? It's Downing and Ellis?
No, sorry, that you gotta, it's Downing and Yarwood,
And what?
right? Yarwood. It's a little street, but if you look at like all the little streets along Yarwood, they all have four-way stops. Principal Spartan School. Thank you, yeah, she
What's the
knows,
school,
she
sir?
knows, cause she remembers. Principal Spartan
Oh, Sparling, oh, yeah, I remember.
Yeah, so
I
there's
worked
just,
there a long time ago. yeah.
it's kind of a connection route down that street. Kids are going, each and every way, because there's Tech Vaughan, Principal Sparling, there's Sergeant Park, so it just, to me, the consistency in the neighborhood also makes sense, so that's my pitch.
So four-way stops are usually designed for motor vehicle traffic movement, so to speak, in terms of if you have like the same number of motor vehicles going in each direction, that's usually what the warrant is. But what you're saying here is this is a purely pedestrian crossing issue?
No, it's both, like it's heavy used because I feel that street is heavily used because there's no four-way stops, right? So people are tending to use that street more than the other streets because the other streets all have four-way stops at that location.
So Garfield and Yarwood does.
Correct.
And Yarwood does.
Yes. So it's also consistency with like, so when you go down the street, it's confusing when you have one that has a four-way stop and the other one doesn't. It's also consistency to make it safer, is consistency in my eyes.
So it's,
Okay,
your idea isn't to slow down traffic,
Well,
it's to give
The-
pedestrians a chance to get across.
right, well, and I know that our experts believe that four-way stops do not slow down traffic.
Nope.
So I'm very cautious of my
That's
choice.
not about slowing down. I have a lot of demand for that, but that's not
Yeah,
the purpose of four-way stops. It's to allow time for people traveling to get their turn as quick as possible. So,
Yeah.
okay.
and there's kind of sight lines that I'm also concerning if you are driving down the Yarwood and somebody's like flying through. In that area, you think, oh, there's gonna be a four-way stop. Cause it's consistent with the other community, right? So, that they could easily be going straight forward and straight through when they think that there's a four-way stop there, because it's consistent, right? So,
okay,
all right.
okay, thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks.
Okay, and our next delegation, I believe, is Terry Wachniak, is that correct?
First up is Kelly Ryback.
Oh, Kelly Ryback by Zoom, sorry there, Terry, okay. Where, is he here or is he on Zoom?
He's online.
He's online.
Starting his video and audio as we
Okay, good, great.
Alert number
Five.
right?
Okay, good morning, counselors, clerks, thank you. This is regard to you putting on Route 22 going to Grace Hospital. It was myself and Fred Morris who created and promoted the petition with 1,300 signatures to restore direct service to Grace. This is a partial victory. There's some issues though with it. And one is that it's only coming from Polo Park for the direct service, where there are many users, especially healthcare workers and patients, people coming for appointments and testing that are coming from beyond Polo Park, further east from the West End and other areas. They're still going to be required to take a transfer, and particularly to make appointments, especially those healthcare workers starting at 6 a.m. They cannot afford to miss a transfer. What we're finding is that many workers are being driven by their partners or family to get to work. We're also finding that parking is at an even greater premium since the rollout of the transit schedule a year ago. And questioning the cost and the timeline not to be implemented until a year from now, subject to the 2027 budget. That with other issues of the transit service, that savings can't be found immediately in order to make any change now. For example, what we witness in St. James is empty buses all day long in St. James coming to and from Unicity, especially when it's westbound after leaving Polo Park. The U of M bus and the St. Norbert bus, the blue lines, are separated by 6 minutes, and yet they bunch up by the second stop at Rouge and Portage. I've seen 7 blue line buses jammed up at Edmonton Street during the commute hours. And again, it's just so frequent that these buses are empty. That either savings can be found now, or as our original recommendation was, have the St. Norbert blue line be the one that serves Grace Hospital, so that it can serve from downtown and right into the Grace. And before the transit routes changed, a month prior, there was Know Your Route sessions throughout the city, and an early one was at Unicity. And a week later, Councillor Duncan had a session at Varsity View Community Club, and the transit planner presented a slide from the Unicity feedback, stating that the desired locations included Grace Hospital and the Assiniboine Clinic. And the irony was not lost on anyone that direct service from the Grace was lost. Secondly, that the bus stop at Assiniboine Clinic and the bus bench at Assiniboine Clinic was removed. And just finding that the proposal of having the 22 serve Grace, though it is a partial win, it doesn't go far enough. And I just asked for it to be reconsidered and actually look at savings and changing routes. Do we need a blue line every 6 minutes in St. James when it's not even meeting that schedule because they get jammed up? We've also seen where 3 buses, both blue lines and a 22, are following each other, and the second and third bus are out of service, yet they're dropping off passengers because they all bunched up, and the only one needing to pick up any passengers along the route is the first bus in line. The other 2 are remaining behind because they have passengers to drop off. And then when we get to Unicity, we've seen as many as 6-7 buses waiting. So I'm asking you that further consideration to have the blue line St. Norbert be the one to provide service to Grace Hospital, and look at adjusting routes so that they're more effective. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Ryback? Okay, to your last point, that's exactly what the public service is doing, is they're adjusting routes, they're looking at routes and adjusting routes. They're looking at data. I don't know if you've seen the new dashboard or not that provides an incredible amount of data and information that's open and transparent to the public. It's not all good news, and there is some good news, but we're being open and transparent, and the public service is working on changing routes, so that they're doing. Now, in regards to Route 22 into the Grace, the public service has been dealing with the Grace Hospital. They do not want a high frequency bus there. They have told the department and made it very clear that the Grace Hospital does not want a high frequency bus going through the hospital. So I have to hope that the Grace Hospital people here, if staff have issues or people have issues, I'd have to hope and think and believe that, when the Grace Hospital tells the city they don't want high frequency, they don't want it. So I don't know what to say about that,
Well, Councillor Lukes, what I question on that is maybe they don't want it because there's also 3 feeders going in there, and also when you look at the big picture, what is the effectiveness of all the feeders going into Grace? If they're not effective and that can be reduced, then the St. Norbert could be accommodated. But it requires a further look. I understand that. You and I discussed at the November 11th, 2023 Public Works meeting, when that was a consideration to bring the plan forward by 1 year, not implementing it in 26, but doing it in 25. And you and I both implored to your fellow councillors, because of in your quote, the fundamental change, and having an aggressive outreach for consultation. We know that didn't happen. And the method that transit is using now to make adjustments and tweaks, I still think is not effective. It's flawed. There needs to be a better way to hear from the public as to what is required for what are the issues and for opportunities for change. It's just not good enough.
Okay, we have a question here. Councillor Chambers, do you have a question?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation there, Kelly. I'm frustrated, as many of my residents in my ward are frustrated, to hear, the Blue Line buses that are bunching up while other areas in the city struggle for service. You said upwards of 6 Blue Line buses are bunching up?
Yes. Downtown.
At the timing station.
That is really, really frustrating to
And in
hear.
particular, it's during the commute hours. But I was walking Portage Avenue between Edmonton and Vaughan. There were 7 Blue Line buses stagnant.
Okay. I will have to ask the department about that because, like I said, I'm very frustrated with, I've been on myself and my staff have been very vocal about the FX2 and the impact that it's had to my local community and trying to get some of those services restored. So
Okay.
again, other areas are rich in service and my area is suffering as a result. So,
Well, I think the overall opportunity, but again, I say that the current way of looking at and addressing is flawed. Also, 2 other examples. Both Blue Lines, U of M and St. Norbert, as they're coming to go westbound on Portage, are entering Portage Avenue at the same time from the south. And also we question the FX3, which comes from Grant Avenue down William Clement into St. James. It's rare that you even see anybody on that bus once it crosses the Assiniboine River in both directions. Maybe that FX3 should be serving all of Charleswood and going down to Dale.
Maybe. Councillor Edie has a question, and we'll hear his question. But again, please know that the public service, the transit department, is working all this. And I will have you know also, and we'll be discussing this when we come forward with the committee, well, when the transit team comes forward. They have had to do a really turn and have to focus on this free transit. So a lot of their time has been sucked into, developing a program for this free transit. So transit's got a lot going on right now. But with that comment, I'll ask Councillor Edie, what is your question?
It sounds like nobody from the community is actually talking to the Grace Hospital. Have you or Fred have you tried to have a community kind of meeting with the Grace Hospital and their management? Because it sounds like they're just like, it is an emergency center too and so on. So to discuss their trying to manage traffic on their property.
I've had a discussion with Grace Management, and they were just reluctant to say anything just because of wanting to preserve a good standing relationship with the city of Winnipeg, not wanting to ruffle any feathers.
Well, I think
That's opposite to what I just heard. So
No, but that's what I can only say what they're saying.
involvement is for Grace Hospital to meet with the people who are demanding to have a frequent bus coming in there. And so I don't see any other way around this, because now they said, we said, whatever. Like, it seems to me there needs to be a public meeting to discuss it, because
Okay.
like I would be concerned at Grace about managing everything there. There's a lot of different kind of traffic happening there, right? So
Right, and as I mentioned earlier, with 3 different feeder routes going in there, maybe 3 different feeder routes don't need to go in there. But you have to look at the data as to how many are being picked up and dropped off at the front door of the Grace,
And that's
right?
further
Anyway,
doing
and
data
I
analysis.
just wanna.
Maybe there's a balance to allow it.
I'd like to make another point, like I know that at Seven Oaks Hospital, there's a lot of people that work at Seven Oaks, including my sister. Most of them live right near the hospital, which means they could jump on a local bus route.
I can tell you from what hospital workers are telling me, there are many that live outside of St. James. And that's where the challenge is.
So, yeah.
And many patients and
All
people
workers
going in, many people going in for diagnostic imaging testing, etc., are coming from all parts of the city. And I'll tell you, the parking is at an extreme premium.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Ryder.
And if I can just suggest, we talk about how transit is collecting data and getting information, and what didn't take place through the 5 years since the plan was announced in 2021 is a robust consultation did not happen. That what I believe what needs to go forward is there need to be ward meetings with community committees and then bringing it all forward, and then transit can capture that all together.
Thank you. Thank you for your perspective on that. Thank you. If there's no more questions, we'll have the next delegation. Thank you very much, Mr. Raback. Have a great day.
Appreciate the opportunity. Take care.
Okay, our next delegation is now, Mr. Wozniak?
Yes,
All right,
on item 6.
item 6. Yes. Item 6.
Chairman, councillors,
Okay, good morning.
morning. Did any of you get my email?
Got an email from you, but I didn't read it.
Anyways, we're here to talk about the agenda items, so is that related to it? You could submit it if you want, or?
Oh, it would have been nice for you folks to have read it. I did try to communicate with your committee through the clerk's office, and they said that is not possible for them to share my communication with the councillors. So I emailed all of you
Right,
directly.
Thank you, we'll look for it.
okay, so
What day was it? Just a few days ago or?
your
Yeah.
presentation has started, so,
It would have arrived in your email on Friday.
Friday,
right,
that's right.
Friday,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay,
As I was prepared to go out to McGregor Medical, yep, good.
Okay,
I'm here to speak to
sorry, okay,
bus stops and shelters.
okay.
Perhaps we can begin by asking the question, when we took out 1,700 bus stops and more than 200 bus shelters, what is the cost of the lost infrastructure for the 200 decommissioned bus shelters? The chairman will know that I've asked that question several times and it remains unanswered, but it is an important question
No, I'll
to
give
know.
you an answer, okay, continue.
So the cost.
Okay, we'll give him an answer when he's done his presentation, let him do his spot, keep going, okay, keep going, Terry, it'd be great.
Okay. I just have to repeat for you folks because city council votes very differently than the way the citizens of Winnipeg are talking to you.
They're gonna have a chance to vote shortly too, so we're all gonna be voting.
True enough.
True enough.
And I suspect when the next council comes in, the first message to the administration is bring back the original system. How fast can it happen? And yesterday is not fast enough for most of the people riding the buses. The F8 might be the one exception for that. And if there was going to be a route that remains, that certainly could be one, because I suspect that the 8% of students going to the University of Manitoba that do think this system is working for them, they live on Henderson Highway. That's my educated guess. But quite frankly, we have to understand that transit as a service, the history of transit as a service, transit's Tom-friendly service, is all about that. It's service. the convenience of bus stops, the ability to get on and off and do a quick shop and get back on the bus and maybe do another quick shop before you get home. We've lost all of that for a year. The distance between stops now makes it inconvenient even to get onto a bus or to get off a bus. And even your blue lines that you are so happy with, when they're running down Portage Avenue, if you wanted to go to a stop on Portage Avenue between blue line stops, you've probably got a 10 or 15-minute walk till the next bus stop. So depending on the weather, that could be disastrous. We really need, as every councillor here knows, fighting for bus stops on the FX2, we need more bus stops. The way to get them, the way to get 1,700 more bus stops, which is all about service. And when there's shelters, they're in places where they're in high need. But somehow this system, the administration of this city, prioritized system efficiency as opposed to service. And even if you look at system efficiency, I don't think they have a passing grade there either. They've lowered the benchmark to 75, right? And it's still unsuccessful. So you tried. It was a bold thing to try, but it does not work. And spending $1.1 billion more on it, $1,100 million, right? 1,000 millions isn't going to make it any better for anybody if there's still 1,700 missing stops. Councillor Edie, you should know that more than half of those stops came from the north end, the missing ones. They came from the north end and the inner city. More than half of all the stops that were removed. It's the core of the city that paid the price for that more than anyone else, but we all have.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Councillor Edie?
So McGregor has the F6, Henderson has, and wherever else the F8 ends up, has a frequent F8. Anything with an F, not the FX, but an F in front of it, there's more distance between stops. So that's very similar over along Henderson, but that bus is heavily used. Not like, I don't understand, the use, and I understand seniors are not liking the extra meters to walk. Anyway, but so on Main Street, there were a couple of inefficient stops removed, but when I asked for the FX2 to stop at Cathedral, there is a bus stop there. Those bus stops have not been removed. They're used by the 31 that utilizes Main Street, but nowhere near as frequent. So there is a reduction in service. But so when you're saying 1,700, like, not sure. I get it. Well, it's in the report, I guess, but there are a lot of stops that still exist along the way, and I think on McGregor, maybe only 2 stops were moved, make it more distance or whatever. Anyway, so I'm just having, you understand, I'm having a hard time understanding how you can say that more bus stops were removed in the north end. There's still all the same bus stops still exist on Selkirk Avenue. All the same bus stops still exist on Mountain Avenue. There's, well, of course, none of the stops on Cathedral west of Main exist anymore, but there are equivalent stops along Inkster. So, like, anyway,
Okay.
Do you have an answer to that?
Question there.
Like, I'm just saying, I don't understand how, say, most of them are missing. And then I'll just make another point. Madam Chairperson,
Yes,
in the discussions all along before the primary network came into play,
yes,
there were people in the community demanding we go to a primary network.
yeah,
A lot of bus lobbyists, a lot of even an organization that Artie Smith and I helped the fund get started up. We're talking about a more frequent, better network. But a lot of the discussion was, and probably efficiency is probably part of it, but a primary network system, the way it is being laid out as they did in Edmonton and other cities in North America, you understand it was about sustainability, and sustainability is about, almost long-term cost and ability to keep a transit system running. You understand that?
okay,
Mr.
okay.
Washington?
Do I understand that?
Yeah. Like that, the whole purpose, one of the main things was sustainability.
Well,
Okay, that's his
That-
question. I don't know if you
that's-
understand that, his question.
I wish I had a proper answer for that question. I think I do understand that the city had good intentions in what they put forward. But when you look at the goals set, which would be more ridership, happier customers riding the buses.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen on the first day of a fundamental change. Simply
benefiting
not.
benefiting downtown Winnipeg. Nothing has been more destructive to the businesses on the street level of downtown Winnipeg than removing the transit buses. You see, you don't see tears in his eyes, but if you visit the convenience store on Graham Avenue where he says 85% of my business is gone. He used to have employees. He doesn't have employees anymore.
Okay, so to his point there about sustainability, I wanted to add just a comment about the decommissioning of the bus shelters, okay? You asked that question about the cost. A lot of those parts and pieces and bits and pieces of glass, pieces of metal, pieces of things are being reused. They're not throwing them out. They're not trashing them. They are being reused. So they've been working on so many different files in the transit department. I don't expect them to come forward with a figure right now. They do have people, they've got a team going through, assessing locations. I fully expect when they come forward and tell us, they'll have that information, but they don't have it right now. I'm gonna speak on their behalf. I'm like 99% sure.
Well, I mean, we could pick a number. Does it cost $20,000 to build a bus shelter?
Multiple different sizes, the bus
Yeah.
shelters, Terry.
And then you say times 200. So
So
if we
it's a
say,
figure, it's definitely a figure. I don't know what the figure is, but it's definitely a figure. Absolutely.
and do they have that number? They absolutely do.
Really?
Are they not sharing it with you? Absolutely, they're
I'll
not.
ask them, okay?
That-
Okay. Any other questions from committee members? Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, just, reverting back to the old system, and adding bus stops. Again, transit is subsidized. Or people who use, transit pay a fare, but other portions that are subsidized, so is it fair to ask taxpayers to revert back to an old system that did have its limitations as well? On the basis that there are a few people that are upset with the way that it's been rolled out. And I don't want to minimize the concerns of residents who are, who transit is, this change in transit is not living up to their expectations. And that's why I am, working with transit to get, the FX2 changed and more service at the University of Manitoba as well. So again, is a delegation where what the cost would be to revert it back to the old system that still had limitations?
it would be only a fraction of the $1.1 billion that is scheduled to be spent on a transit system that you can't get an extra bus stop. We all know that there's two, yourself and Councillor Eady are both trying to get small changes to the FX2, and the administration refuses. In the same way that they refuse to slow down the buses.
No, you know what? They bring that information forward and council votes on it. They're not refusing. They bring the information forward, we vote on it. So we don't want to vote on a $4 million little change on a route. We're not voting on it. We're not supporting it. So it's not them. They just bring the information forward.
Well,
Okay, one more question.
I just have one more question.
I
I have one more question, Mr. Wozniak. You keep citing $1.1 billion. Do you know what the breakdown of the spending is for, projected to be doing? Like, you've referred to, the Union Station as a downtown hub. It's actually a hub for future growth in our bus rapid transit system is the main reason that that's happening.
yes,
So when you cite all this dollars that you're talking about, it's being spent on things that we need for a transit system.
having a hub at the Union Station will not benefit downtown Winnipeg at all. There is no benefit.
Benefiting the rapid transit.
Well, they're not gonna put a hub there, it's not benefiting.
If you look at the Millennium Library, in the last 12 months, from June till June, they have dropped in attendance by almost 40%, directly related to no buses in downtown Winnipeg. It's quiet. If you walk around downtown Winnipeg, it's quiet. There are no buses.
There's a lot of reasons for that, not just because.
Yeah, it's not just.
The number one reason is that there's no people and no buses. That's the number one reason.
Thank you, Mr. Wozniak, for your presentation. I don't know if there's any more questions. We've got a lot of stuff on transit here that we're doing. We got look, the whole agenda is transit. We're doing stuff on transit.
Make sure they know that they should be ready, because there's going to be counselors that are going to be here, hopefully more than 9, that are going to have a priority of
That is
changing
the
it
key.
back.
That is the key.
Yes.
9 is the magic number at City Hall, Mr. Wozniak.
You'll have to go to the
Thank you
property
very much.
taxpayers and say, pay a lot more to go back to the old system.
Okay, thank you, thank you. All right, so now, oh, look at this, perfect, I was drinking from a broken glass, okay. Okay, so now we're ready to start our reports. We'll invite transit staff up and, we've got a lot to cover here. Okay, thank you. Okay. Good morning, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning, morning. All right, you'd like to start, Mr. Gunn?
Good morning. My name is Greg Wonky, Director of Winnipeg Transit. I have with me today Bjorn Radstrom, Manager of Service Development, as well as Lori Fisher, our Manager of Finance, and Teresa Platt, our Manager of Client Services. And up first, we have our Winnipeg Transit Plus policy update. So Teresa will start us off.
Okay, this is really good. Okay. All right, Transit Plus policy update. And there's lots of appendixes here. And I know this is something we've been working on for quite a while. And we're very excited about it. Stalling for time.
Thank you.
You're going. Well, actually, on this agenda, there's an awful lot of good work on transit. And I wish we had a bigger team of transit people, right, that would alleviate your workload. And I know you're all working really hard on this, and you know, thank you. It's a lot, especially when we get these darts thrown at us from other angles. Okay, all right, Teresa, you ready?
I am, thank
Okay.
you. So good morning, Madam Chairperson, members of the committee. I'm here today to present the proposed eligibility Winnipeg Transit Plus policy updates, including eligibility, no-show, late cancellation, and carry-on bag policy. These policies, starting with eligibility, shifts from a medical-based model to a functional abilities model, including physical, cognitive, sensory abilities to use the transit services. These expanded criteria will allow individuals who previously did not meet the outdated criteria to apply. Updating our no-show late cancellation, proposed changes simplify and clarify expectations, replacing the existing fee-based system with a focus on education before suspension of service to address these costly inefficiencies. The carry-on bag policy creates greater flexibility for our customers to travel more reasonably and support their travel needs. The goal of these updates is simple: to modernize our paratransit services, enhance accessibility, and ensure we are meeting the evolving needs of our community while remaining fiscally responsible. The key recommendations, although there's not immediate changes, with approval of TR 002, the carry-on bag policy can be implemented at no cost. Otherwise, the recommendations is to refer the funding in phases 1 to 3 for the improvements to the 2027 budget update process. To successfully roll out these implementations over the next 5 years, we planned a phased approach for financial and staffing planning. And this approach ensures that we can scale our internal capacity responsibly along the side of service changes and minimizing upfront system impacts to our customers. These changes come from our 2019 Manitoba Ombudsman report and the subsequent recommendations from that report. It supports human rights legislation, industry best practices, and aligns with the Winnipeg Transit Master Plan. This policy update is backed by rigorous research and community consultation, ensuring we don't make these decisions without our customers' input. We had integrated also critical findings of our consultant report, and we have a community voice through our public information summary also attached to the report, so that we have engaged directly with our Transit Plus users to ensure the policy reflects real-world needs. These updates represent a significant step forward in making Winnipeg a more inclusive and accessible city, and ensures that Winnipeg Transit Plus can sustainably serve our residents for years to come. Thank you, and happy to take any questions you may have.
Okay, Councillor Sharma.
Teresa, there's a lot of consultation done earlier this year. That was really great. What are the things that we're going to be changing right away? You may have mentioned them. I'm sorry, you said a lot of things there. They're listed in Appendix A.
Yeah, so
what are they specifically? Things that we can already change?
Yeah, so right now it would be the carry-on bag policy with that approved TR 002. That doesn't have any cost associated with that, and we can implement that quickly, and does have an impact on our customers traveling every day. The other eligibility no-show late cancellation does have budget requirements and support required to implement.
And that'll go to the next budget cycle. What would the earliest any changes would be made? Which quarter next year?
So it would start with the no-show late cancellation, and then the year after that, which would be, we'd be looking at 2029 for an implementation for eligibility.
Thank you.
Can I just ask one question on that? So what kind of feedback did you get from the people when you said to them 2029?
I think what we're hearing is that that's almost a decade from when the Manitoba Ombudsman report came out, made those recommendations. So 10 years to wait for those changes is significant, especially that criteria does impact individuals to apply because they don't have criteria right now. There's many people that can't apply.
Right.
So the length of time.
And how could we accelerate that timeline? How would one accelerate it? I mean, it's budget but it's probably the amount of work also that you have to do to prepare for it, or how could we accelerate it?
An acceleration would look like a year earlier for some technology where we can implement that technology, test the technology so that we can then have that foundation laid to have the policy superimposed on top of that.
So
but we need a
budget, that's budget and time to implement. Okay. Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, so looking at, thank you for the presentation. Looking at the recommendations from 2027 to 2031, there are FTEs, starting off with 4.9 FTEs in 2027, and then all the way to 2031, we're at 12.5 FTEs. What are the roles of these FTEs?
So we have administrative assistance that we require, given we anticipate the uptick for applications, for assessments. So that will look at contractor hours for occupational therapists and physiotherapists to conduct assessments, administrative assistance to review the applications coming in. As we go through that year phased approach, it also looks at travel trainers that will help support our customers transitioning to the use of conventional at times, assist with their mobility devices and education using their equipment, both on conventional and paratransit services.
So from 2029, maintaining a staffing level at 12.5 FTEs.
Correct.
Thanks.
So, also on the budget page, phase 2 eligibility criteria preparation, first mile, last mile pilot. So the really big financial impact is the contractors, correct? So is this because we're anticipating a lot more contractors?
We're anticipating additional hours required because not only are we increasing our eligibility, we have to
Fit the timelines.
fit the timelines, and we will be carrying additional individuals other than just registrants. It will also be
Right.
mandatory attendance, for example, for individuals maybe with cognitive impairments.
So that's increasing basically the contractor fleet, I guess I'd call it. right?
Yeah, and the vehicle hours required.
And the vehicle hours required, okay. What are the vehicle hours now for ballpark for contractor transit operation?
They fluctuate.
We do.
But like, is it a 9 to 5 or is it? You can look that up if you want. I'm just curious, like our transit system starts at what, 5:30 in the morning? Roughly 5:30 and ends mostly at,
Till about 2 o'clock, last buses leave downtown at 1:30.
and is that what you're expecting Transit Plus to operate too?
For our next report, we will be speaking to that, that we will be required to have a comparable hours of service
Right.
for paratransit, because Transit Plus to the conventional service. So we will be adding additional hours in the next report as well.
Right, so that's really where that 5 million, 6 million comes in, is the hours and more fleet in this budget here.
This one is for the eligibility.
Right.
In the next report for compliance for the ATSR, that's additional hours that will be required.
Right, oh, this is an eligibility.
Yes, specifically.
It speaks to the operating hours
Yeah.
in the UTSR report, right?
Okay,
This is for the additional hours for the cars that are on the road.
right,
And the difference is in the other report is the actual operating hours that are out there
okay,
to align with the conventional service.
okay.
Okay.
Because this says additional contractor hours also.
So that's more vehicles on the road because we anticipate more people on the service.
Okay, got it. Okay, so Counselor Edie?
Your questions, Rose, I did have a question. So from the way we were evaluating qualifying to be a Transit Plus user, is there more hours involved in determining function versus the method we were using in the past?
At this
In
point,
assessing?
we'll have very similar assessments that will be conducted. We still will have a self-referral application form where applicants provide the information. We believe that they know themselves best and that they provide that information directly. And so they don't need to go to a healthcare provider for that. So that really reduces cost and time for any applicants to the service. The assessments at this point will look very similar. It will be once we have approval and budget to look at additional resources to tease out even further what that assessment will look like. But certainly it will be very similar to what we do now, just with additional tools.
It's similar, but I think it's probably be a bit longer in doing an assessment. Anyway, okay,
And that's to be determined still.
yeah, just, I get, well, it is the other one about the same hours of operation, but so do we have to provide our contractors with a minimum fee? Because like, I don't know how many Transit Plus users are, you know, traveling at around 2 o'clock in the morning, or, you know, or around 5:30. Do you think there's gonna be some cost implications there? Like if I'm providing trip service and I have to provide the equipment and the staff for longer hours, do you envision that we're gonna have any issues regarding under our contract? So I think we actually have one here on our agenda today as well.
Yeah, part of the budget ask is looking at an analyst so that we can determine the assessment of accessible hours that we will need, the vehicle hours, the service hours. And we anticipate being able to scale up the service, which is why we look at overflow contracts, so that it's as a used, as required basis, so that we can scale up service and be as fiscally responsible as we can be within those times, but also that analysis of what the service demand will look like.
Okay, Councillor Chambers?
I don't know if the question, and thank you for that, I don't know if the question that I'm gonna ask is similar to Councillor Edie's, but how do you project growth of service need? Is it based on population increase sizes and matching that with age and potential need of seniors, or how do you project growth?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that we're challenged with often. The use of technology is very helpful for us. Also looking at what other properties, transit properties saw when they increased their eligibility criteria, as well as their Accessible Disability Act, what occurred with their system. So it's also looking at peer reviews, but also that technology and that specific analyst to be able to really glean out that information altogether, as well as like Stats Canada, all of the metrics that we can pull, we certainly do.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the Transit Plus policy updates report? It's a big monumental milestone, I think that's what we say. And it's great you had all that consultation that you did and outreach, and that was very good. And then we have the budget sheet, right? So, okay. All right, can I have a mover? Councillor Edie's going to move the Winnipeg Transit Plus policy updates. All right, all in favor? Carried. Now, report number 2, transit compliance with the new provincial accessible transportation standard regulations.
Yes.
Requirements.
So were these, wasn't there an ombudsman report that came out a couple of years ago? Yeah,
2019.
yeah, so is this part of that?
This actually, the Ombudsman report really ties very closely to our eligibility report. So the one we just read, the no-show cancellation, carry-on bag, eligibility was the feedback that we received from the Ombudsman. So this really does tie up those final recommendations from that report.
All right, well.
Okay. So this is the Winnipeg Transit compliance with the new provincial accessible transportation standard regulation. It's a mouthful. So ATSR is the acronym. And I'm pleased to address this important regulatory milestone for our transit system, bringing Winnipeg Transit into compliance with the provincial's new regulation under the Accessible for Manitobans Act. The statutory compliance comes into effect January 1st, 2027. And Manitoba is the second province in Canada to introduce accessible legislation. The ATSR is the second standard, it's the latest standard. The intent of this standard is to remove barriers to accessing transportation, which is essential for individuals with disabilities and individuals of older adulthood. This regulation sets clear, enforceable standards to eliminate barriers and ensure a dignified, accessible transit experience for all Manitobans, Winnipeggers. Our compliance is not just a legal requirement, it is a critical step forward in removing systemic barriers in municipal travel. Significant progress has been made toward accessibility. The department, including conventional and paratransit services, already complies with several requirements. 98 requirements and 84 are met, which leaves us with 14 significant initiatives to still be completed. And full compliance cannot be met without funding resources. So the key recommendation is the referral to the required, to the 2027 budget update process for the ATSR improvements. So meeting these mandatory provincial standards requires a sustained financial commitment over the next 5 years. And the report outlines a proposed strategy outlined to structure in a phased implementation across operating costs, capital costs, and the full-time equivalent staffing. So why this matters is that compliance with ATSR is legally binding. Delaying implementation exposes the city to regulatory penalties and leaves gaps in our equity targets. This funding directly tackles physical infrastructure upgrades, technical adjustments to transit vehicles, updates training programs for accessibility, and improves digital interfaces. The staggered staffing and financial models ensure that Winnipeg Transit can absorb these structural changes systematically, meeting compliance and without disrupting service for our customers. These recommendations and referring them to the 2027 budget process ensures Winnipeg Transit remains compliant, inclusive, and forward-thinking in its accessibility commitment. Thank you.
Okay. Another big initiative.
So.
Councillor Chambers?
So there's a recommendation for more FTEs. 7 starting in 2027 and all the way up to 10 in 2031. So their roles will be very different than the other 12 and a half that you're recommending.
Yes, and I think this is where maybe some clarity would really help. So the eligibility, the no-show, late cancellation, as well as the carry-on bag policy is very much kind of that fundamental customer information and service that lays that foundation. Superimposed on that at the same time is the ATSR, which speaks more to some process, policies, and methods of providing transportation. So some of the significant outstanding items for the ATSR is requiring a 14-day decision time. So when someone applies for Transit Plus, we have 14 days to make a decision. Otherwise, that individual receives service until a decision is made. We would like to be able to get in that very seamless transition for customers where they're receiving the eligibility decision that they will get within that 14 days, just to minimize misunderstanding and disruptions to service for them. So that would be a compliance matter for Transit Plus. One of the significant impacts to both conventional and paratransit service is the support person program, which would require both conventional and paratransit for customers to travel with a support person that they feel they need to remove barriers in transportation. So that will also impact service for both services, revenue, as well as vehicle space.
So the policy change that will be made will allow for, like what you said, the support person to ride on buses, but it's all of the administrative type decisions that will need to be made that these positions will.
Yes, and again, some additional travel training permanent positions, and that really is one of the short-term goals of the master plan, was to expand the travel training program. And that's where we'll see again in all of the initiatives that we're doing, whether it's eligibility, first mile, last mile, family of services, it's that travel training exposure and education to support our customers. It's one program that we've always leaned on, but it's never been a permanent position. It's never been a permanent program. And so that's what these recommendations will do.
Thank you.
Councillor Eady?
So part of the transportation regs and the medical accessibility for medical Act. So So we're working on a whole bunch of stops now under the primary network. And part of the accessibility is related to bus stops. So as we're moving along with the work we're doing with stops now, those are going to be according to a standard that's required under the Act.
Yes, those standards are developed and we work closely with the accessibility plan within and universal design within the city of Winnipeg to ensure that compliance is met.
So we can get a little more compliant with some of our buses. It won't be all of them, but with some of them as we're moving along with this primary network work that we're doing.
Our goal is to bring them all into compliance. The biggest challenges are going to be on streets that have gravel shoulders and ditches, because it's extremely difficult and expensive to design and build a bus stop that's fully accessible on a street like that. So even North Henderson Highway is a good example. It's we did put in, this is going back about 15 years, we put in some culverts and a path to get across the ditch, but the bus stop is still located on a shoulder, didn't have a proper curve and platform. As Public Works is planning to upgrade that whole section of Henderson Highway to what we call an urban cross section with curbs and sewer drains, catch basins instead of ditches, then we can make those fully accessible. But there'll always be some, I shouldn't say always, for quite a while there will be some locations where it's extremely difficult to bring them into compliance. But for any other type of street, yeah, our goal is to build those platforms, connect to existing sidewalks, or at the very least put in curb ramps so somebody in a wheelchair can get up from street level onto the passenger platform.
I'd just like to be able to tell the province, we're working on existing stops now, right?
Yeah.
For the primary network, so we're starting to move towards compliance, so I think that's good. I thought the Henderson Highway project was already.
It's approved, it just, I don't know, does start from.
What year was it supposed to
We're
happen?
doing the final designing on it.
Yeah, I think it
so.
doesn't start construction till next year.
Oh, they are, okay. We don't have a bus that runs down Glenway anymore, but right, that had ditches as well. Sort of
So I'm.
further up towards Gateway, I think. Do we have a bus that runs all the way to Glenway and?
The F8 goes all the way up to Glenway Loop, but it doesn't run down Glenway. It just goes to that loop there. And then
Okay.
on Gateway Raleigh, the FX4 runs up to Knowles.
Oh, right, okay.
So maybe I'm missing it, but I'm looking in the budget detail sheet. I don't really see where we're purchasing more buses. Like, I know we've got another sheet where we're purchasing buses, but would we not have an estimate on how many more buses we need for this new regulation? Do we have an estimate on that? Because I think the province needs to know if they're gonna mandate this on us, what it's gonna cost. I mean, you have all this other stuff and that's nice, but
Why would we need?
Well, because
The
people
ones
can-
we have are already accessible.
I know, but I think people can bring a friend, right? And I don't know, I would imagine when there are more, when the eligibility requirements are not as medical based, but more mobility based, more people, I could be mistaken, but what do you think?
The way that this legislation works, it's about being in strict compliance with people's physical ability to actually access the bus and get on board. If there's things like it's not frequent enough for it to be convenient, although that's an issue, it's not about compliance with this regulation. So something like that is not part of this report because it's
Right,
not about.
but in order to be compliant, we have to allow more people to ride the bus, right?
No, that's not a part of the compliance.
Part of this compliance, it is a part.
It's an important part of the overall, the overall transit plan and the service we want to build, but it's not, that is not an issue for compliance with this legislation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's equivalent, Madam Chairperson,
Yes.
like what a person without a disability gets in frequency,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And sometimes a bus passes you.
Yeah.
That's equal rights.
Yep.
I mean, there's,
Okay.
what this thing is trying to do is bring this standard for accessibility so that persons with disabilities gets the same riding experience as the person without a disability.
What percentage of compliance, where are we at with the percentage of compliance?
So we have 14 items that we still need to meet. Otherwise, we meet actually 84 of the regulation standards.
Do you have that in the report here somewhere? Like that, I think that's really positive that we talk about that. So you're saying we've got, of the 84, we have 14 left to be compliant on,
Yes, they're just significant.
but they're just the dollar ones. And do we list what they are anywhere? Does anyone know what they are? Do counselors know what they are?
So generally, it's how we run the service so that we have processes in place. Many of the regulations is that we have policies written that it demonstrates that we do what we do and it's accessibility compliant. Training, for example, we already complete accessibility training for both bus operators in the conventional and.
Right, but I would say then that would be one of
So a
the,
lot of those
so what are the 14 that we aren't, and what's the budget sort of forecasted for that, I guess would be the question. Because like I just did a 2-year little analysis here of adding up these financials, and we're at 16 million over the next 2 years, over and above. So like big hit on transit, right? Super positive stuff, would love to fund it all. But I would like to understand, and maybe you can email that to us, but I think councilors should understand where we're at, what percentage we've got done that we're compliant with, and what we aren't. And just, I don't know if you can list what they are. You may not have a price point on them yet, but I would think that when they do the 4-year budget forecast.
Are you talking about the ones that we're not compliant on, what the cost is?
Yeah.
Well, that's what this report outlines.
These are the only ones? This is it? This is it?
The financial impact related to the ones.
Of the ones that we are not compliant on, all 14? Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, okay, good.
I can do some highlights.
Most of them are accessible.
Yeah.
So the areas that we're still requiring, again, we spoke about that today, the transit stops.
Yeah.
The expansion of paratransit hours to be comparable with the conventional service.
Right.
The establishment of a fare-free support person program. That's with that. An introduction of annual public meetings, both for conventional and paratransit service, so that can occur every year. The implementation of new and ongoing accessible training programs. Preparing to manage additional ridership with support persons, companions, and children for paratransit. So companions and children will increase for Transit Plus. Enhancing the turnaround time, like I talked about, that 14-day eligibility timeline. So those are the fairly significant ones. The other ones include things like the design of our conventional transit vehicles to ensure that we're ordering those to be compliant. The priority and courtesy seating policy, we're going to implement just some updates to that. Some boarding and alighting, where we're ensuring appropriate time for individuals to board and alight and ensure their wheelchairs, scooters are fully secured. So those are the major ones that are outlined in this report. Okay.
It was mentioned in the previous report too, in terms of packages or as they're boarding, the amount of packages that they can take with them.
Yes.
Has that been an impact? Have you noticed that it could potentially prohibit somebody else from boarding if a person's got too much stuff that they're carrying with them?
Yeah, and that's what the policy is really intended to outline, is that, you can travel with the amount of baggages that you require, as long as you can maintain it within your seat area. Because we do have to ensure that the aisleways are safe. We have to ensure that we are providing as much transportation as we can for all of our customers. So that's what this policy really looks at, is what can you manage within your seat space?
So does it preclude that a person who may have a medical device with them, whether it's a tank of oxygen or another assisted device, that's all to be considered as they're boarding the bus?
Those are separate items,
okay.
So those are required mobility aids and mobility devices, so that doesn't fall under that carry-on bag policy. What's under that carry-on bag policy is simply the luggage or bags or grocery bags that people may carry above and beyond those medical devices.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I follow up just a bit on that? So I'm thinking when I do groceries and I'm using a bus, I've used those grocery carts, which is kind of like having a walker pretty well, which can hold like 4 bags. Groceries or, well, depending on the size you have, but when you say maintaining the seat, so you wouldn't be able to maintain that. I don't know what they call them, but they got wheels on them so that when you're walking on a sidewalk, you can pull them. How would that work under the policy?
So a shopping
Either
cart,
on a regular transit and on a transit plus vehicle.
yeah, for a paratransit vehicle, our space is quite small for the amount of individuals and the needs that we have to ensure we have space for. So for paratransit or transit plus, we don't have shopping carts or something that would come on the vehicle. We have to ensure that people can take their medical devices first, their mobility aids first, and then carry on bags. So on the conventional service, of course, if again, you're keeping the aisleway clear, which is what we have to ensure with the bylaw, and individual safety shopping carts can be used on, the folding ones that can come out of the aisleway. And again, people are looking at we're having individuals make sure that the bags that they're carrying is within their seat space again still.
So I wouldn't be able to like a family member with a child in a stroller, can I not store it in a lifted seat beside me in
Absolutely.
front of the bus?
Priority and courtesy seating on the conventional service specifically designed for that, so that someone can fold their stroller and have that stowed out of the aisleway.
Well, if somebody can't drive and they don't want to pay for taxis, they can do that then, right? On the regular transit anyway.
That's right.
Okay.
All right, do we have any questions from other committee members on this report? If not, could I have someone move the report?
So moved.
Mr. Chambers?
Public service recommendation.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we have 2 contracts coming up for our provision of accessible service for transportation services for Transit Plus. So if you would like to, someone would like to go through them, okay, it's Teresa's day.
So this is the awarded contract for the provision of accessible services transportation for Winnipeg Transit Plus. The RFP is 276-2026. So as we've talked about quite a bit at this committee, the private contractors deliver service for Winnipeg Transit Plus. In the paratransit division of Winnipeg Transit, we provide door-to-door service to customers who cannot use the conventional service some or all of the time. This report is for the award of a contract to 101-63293 Manitoba Inc. Para Accessible Transportation to provide accessible transportation for Winnipeg Transit Plus. The estimated cost is $5,233,510.27. The procurement is through the request for proposal process. The RFP 276-2026 includes the provision of accessible transportation services, including those who are unable to walk, so ambulatory, or those who use mobility aids, such as wheelchairs, who are non-ambulatory. It requires 8 accessible minivans with 2 spare vehicles, and this work will be done as as required basis, estimated at 32,596 vehicle hours per year. And it's set to begin on November 1st, 2026 and continue until October 31st, 2029. And this contract replaces 2 existing contracts with similar scopes. So this contract ensures the continuity of dedicated paratransit services for residents who rely on Transit Plus for their daily travel and independence through 2029. So if you have any questions on this report, I'd be happy to ask.
Councillor Reedy?
Well, I'll say reading, I was listening to, reading, some emails. The companies that are bidding on these, RFPs, is it true there's like an American company who then hires local drivers to drive? Is that happening now, or are these all local firms, still providing trips?
They're Canadian companies. They're Canadian companies, so some are local, some are within Canada. I'm not familiar with American, but
You know, yeah, they could be an American company with a Canadian operation.
possible.
You're not sure? Okay. All right.
Okay. Any other questions on this consolidation contract? No other questions? It's a big contract. Now, how many more do we have to consolidate? Like, I know we've been chiseling away at this, so.
We have I can confirm the exact numbers, but we're starting to come to the final several,
And what, are we aiming for, like, is it 5 or 7, or what was it that we were aiming?
7 to 8.
8, right,
We were at 12.
Yes.
So we're slowly coming down.
We're getting close.
right, okay. Okay, all right, okay, well,
Sorry, who's the winning bidder on this one?
This is Pure Transportation.
Kara?
and they have received those points in the criteria in the pass and fail. And their price was just a, what was it, okay, do we have any questions on this?
Yeah, so, contractors, they're okay with this given the current fuel costs? Has that been factored in or?
What we're looking at doing right now is, because we have the eligibility policy, the ATSR, we're looking at some shorter contracts right now, 3 to 5 years. And the reason being is that we'll be able to provide more analysis on the types of vehicles that we're looking at, the duration of those contracts. Typically, we look at contracts between 7 to 9 years because of the cost and the amortization over so many years. But what we'd like to do is really look at what will the service look like? Who will be transporting? What mobility needs will they need? So that's why these contracts are 3 to 5 years, so that we can provide that analysis.
I could just add as well that there is inflationary adjustments to these contract prices, and they do include a fuel component. So you'll note in the recommendations that we're assuming a 5%, and that's part of why it's a little bit higher than what you would normally see as, you know, usually it's 2, 2 and 3.
That's just an estimate for now.
It's just an estimate.
Yeah, and, okay, we'll move this report. Report 4 is a good segue into just a discussion on the different types of vehicles and understanding the need. So who would like to move report number 3?
So moved.
Councillor Sharma, all in favor? Carried.
Please record me opposed. I'm not sure if that's an American company and I don't want to be accused of, anything. So,
I mean,
no,
Yeah, no,
I don't be attacked by the public.
No,
That's
and you're absolutely correct, Councillor Edie. You know, there is that concern, but we do have trade agreements that we do have to abide by as well.
It's your call. I'm voting nay.
Okay, all right, Mark Councillor 88 is in opposition. Okay, item number 4, award contract for the provision of non-dedicated accessible transportation services for Winnipeg Transit Plus. So this is interesting, and maybe explain it to everyone here. Let's go through this again.
Okay. And I have confirmed that Perry is Ontario, it's Canadian, just a pass. So yes, I'm here to present the RFP for 278 2026. This award is to contract 101-63293 Manitoba Inc. Care Accessible Transportation. So again, a Canadian company. And this is to provide dedicated accessible transportation to Winnipeg Transit Plus. The estimated cost here is $1,820,233.73. The procurement is through the request for proposal RFP process. And this covers that dedicated non-dedicated overflow, accessible transportation for Transit Plus customers. Again, it serves our customers both from an ambulatory and non-ambulatory perspective. And this contract called for one low-floor microtransit van or minibus, as well as 3 accessible minivans, and for one to serve as a spare. The work will be as needed basis, totaling 11,337 vehicle hours per year. And it will start after the contract is awarded and will last for 3 years. And again, this contract replaces an expired one with a similar scope. The recommendations in this report follows the city's purchasing policy, and they also meet all relevant trade agreements. Could you have any?
Okay,
So non-dedicated, that refers to kind of a like, what is that reference to? Sorry, non-dedicated?
So this is like an overflow. So similar to the conversation a few minutes ago about scaling up our service, this allows us to scale up and scale down as needed. So it's that overflow contract that we had prior to COVID. We didn't have that for a number of years just because the volume wasn't there. But certainly we're seeing that return to service.
And you've estimated the cost. It's an estimated cost, obviously, because it's scalable.
And the winning bidder is?
And this again is Care Accessible Transportation, and they are a Canadian company from Ontario.
No. Good.
okay,
Sure, but
so,
see, if that was a Canadian company too, they have an office in Toronto. Apparently they're American, so. Yeah.
So it's an Ontario company with a local presence here, Teresa, in Winnipeg.
Yeah, so they're operating within Manitoba. They have a home location here. They also serve Ontario, so other regions like York Region also uses Care Transportation. So they are well versed in paratransit throughout Canada.
and then with this report, this request here is looking to purchase some of the used vehicles or ones that are maybe not brand new, but to try out different types of vehicles to see what the need is.
Yes.
That's what this report, kind of the essence of it is.
And some, again, those discussions we've had with our policy advisory committee, really looking at what will our service require after the next 3 to 5 years when we've gone through these policy changes, when we've changed the criteria. This allows us like a sampler platter, if you will, to look at what vehicles are available right now, have our customers give us feedback, really understand what works with the mobility devices that are used. We're seeing changes in mobility aids, the footprint that they use and that they require. So this allows us to really understand what we'll need for provision of vehicles going forward.
Okay. I think this is great. This is, I didn't understand it at first when then I talked it through, but I think this is good. It allows that flexibility to see what this need will be. So, okay, okay, anyone want to move this?
I'll move it.
Councilor Chambers? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Or
everyone's in
be
support?
in
Councilor in
opposition,
opposition?
just in case, I haven't had time to research
Okay.
whether or not they're originally an American base and established a
It's
Canadian
going up
office.
to EPC and council too, so.
Okay, all right, all in favor then, we've got him registered in opposition, all in favor, carried. Okay, now, annual service plan and state of the system.
Okay, so that's me.
Now,
Thank you very much. So today is the 1-year anniversary of the launch of the new network.
today, oh my goodness.
So part of that launch is that we committed to bringing these annual service plans forward every year so we can be more systematic about how we propose changes, rather than it being individual changes that come in throughout the year that we respond to. We wanted to group everything together and every year say, here are the changes that we're proposing for the next year, and bring them in time that they can be referred to the budget process and hopefully be funded for the subsequent year. So this is the first one of those. It's smaller than what we'll be bringing forward in subsequent years, but for a couple of really good reasons. The first one is that we have made a lot of changes throughout the past year. I don't think I need to read through them all again because we've been putting them at the beginning of almost every report that we've been bringing forward to this committee. But essentially, it's that we brought forward a large suite of changes in December, April, and in June, and there's still more coming in September. So out of all those changes that we haven't yet been able to put in place, these are the ones that we have developed that we feel are the most important to implement over the next year, based on two things. Feedback from riders and from city councillors. The feedback from riders generally comes through 311 or comes through councillors' offices. And then also our own internal analysis. So some ideas that we came up with on our own independently, or when we get the suggestions, complaints, and the feedback from riders, we verify that against our own data. And so what we've developed here is this suite of proposals. One is changing connector route 22 to go through Grace Hospital. One is adding some additional trips to the 671 and the 672 to deal with higher than expected evening demand. Shifting some underutilized trips on the 672 from the AM to the PM to also respond to the same issue that the previous one is that I mentioned. Adding an extra bus in the PM peak on the 677 Wilkes to accommodate high passenger loads and insufficient frequency. And then also shifting some underutilized trips on the 889 from the AM peak, early in the AM peak where they weren't being heavily used, to the midday. In effect, it's just after the AM peak, because that's when the demand is starting to build for students and staff that want to go back and forth between the two campuses. In addition to that, there's 3 reports that were previously referred to the budget process that weren't funded, and we don't want to lose sight of those as we enter into this new cycle of annual service plans. So what our process will be going forward is anything that was referred to the budget process but that wasn't funded at that time, we're going to make sure that that stays on the list, and we'll reprioritize those against all of the new ideas that we've developed, so that you'll have this list of prioritization that you can refer to the budget working group, and the budget working group can see what our recommendations are for prioritization. So the 3 that are carried over that were previous referrals to the budget process are transit service between Linden Woods and Oak Park and Shaftesbury High Schools, service extension to Festival Drive, so that's west of the west perimeter on Portage Avenue, to the area where the new Costco is and the Automall of Manitoba, Red River X, that whole area there. And also extending service up to Highland Point, near the north end of McPhillips. And that is right now the largest residential area in the city that does not have any transit service.
Buses are being extended up there?
It's a feeder route. I don't remember the exact number, but I can find that for you because it is in here. That would be
This one here, the map.
334.
334.
334. Yeah, it's an existing feeder route that would be extended all the way up there.
Okay.
So then, as part of this whole plan, the other thing that we've done is we've created what we call the State of the System report. So that's Appendix A to this report. Appendix A really explains what the state of the system is. It gives an explanation of all the different measurements that we take, how we evaluate them, what we consider to be meeting expectations, not meeting expectations, exceeding expectations. And so these are things that they tell people a lot about how the system is working, such as on-time performance and the span of service hours. That's when the service starts in the morning to when it ends in the evening. Headway is not a common term outside the transit industry, but it's distinct from frequency. Frequency is the number of buses per hour. So if you have 10 buses per hour, that's the frequency, but the headway is a bus coming every 6 minutes. There is a distinction between the two, and just so we don't mix up what we're talking about, I realize headway is not a commonly used term, but we still wanted to use it here. So that's why you see things like on a rapid transit route at peak times, we expect the headway to be every 4 to 10 minutes. So that means a bus coming every 4 to 10 minutes. Crowding is another measure, just gives you an idea of what percentage of service we consider to be crowded. And then boardings per service hour, that gives you an idea of how well a transit route is used. So for each bus that operates on that route, if there's 20 boardings per service hour, it means that there's 20 people that get on each bus each hour. So that's really what those mean. We're also going to be reporting on other things in the future, such as cost per boarding. That's by route, how much it costs us to provide each trip on that route. We don't have enough.
Cost per boarding.
Cost per boarding,
Really?
yeah. We
That's
report
very
that,
detailed.
we report that system-wide as part of the budget
Yeah,
process.
Yeah,
And internally, we've been using cost per boarding on each route. But this is the first time that we've been wanting to make it public for everybody to see. But because of the transition in the entire network,
Right.
the costing model that we have is, we need to make some changes to it. So next year, we should be able to report on cost per boarding, but we're not reporting on that this year. And there's a note in here about that. And then when you get further into the state of the system report, all those different measures, what we show is, I'm just gonna scroll down here. We show things like on-time performance for every single primary network route. There's only 19 of them, so it was easy to fit in here. But then we only show the top 5 and the bottom 5 for the feeder network on each of weekday, Saturday, and Sunday. For the boarding per service hour, again, we show that for weekday, Saturday, and Sunday for every route in the primary network, but only the top 5 and bottom 5 for the feeder network. For crowding, we show the percentage of service considered to be crowded for the entire primary network, and then only the bottom 5 because it's actually meaningless to say it's top 5 in terms of crowding. You just want to know what the 5 most crowded are. So that's what it shows there. But more importantly than that, there's a link in here to a new page on our website that has what we call our route level dashboards. Some other systems call them route report cards, but it's essentially the same thing. And it shows all these different measures for each route. So if you click through on there, what you come to is a page where it shows the map of the route, and then you can select which route and which day type. So day type being weekday, Saturday, or Sunday, and then there's all of the measures there. So you can see the on-time performance, the headway, the boardings per service hour, span of service, and crowding for each route. And people can go in there and see how well whichever route they're interested in is performing. Then we also have a similar page for on-request service. It's a little bit different because something like on-time performance doesn't apply to on-request service, but it shows you how well they're used, the completed boardings, the requested boardings, how many people canceled, number of people per day, what the average wait times are, and then also how many people are using on-request service in each time period on each day type. And there's also a map showing where on-request service is used the most for pickups and drop-offs. So it really just gives you an idea of how people are using it to get around the neighborhood. We wanted to make this public because it's a big step forward in transparency and accountability, so people can see how the different routes are working, but it also ties into any proposals that we make in annual service plan any year. People should be able to see why we are making certain recommendations, because it's to meet performance standards that maybe aren't quite up to snuff on some of these routes, and people can verify that in here. So I just got to get back to the report here. Go. Okay. So in the annual service plan, several of these proposals do require additional funding, and those are the ones that we're asking be referred to the budget process. So again, extending Route 22 or changing Route 22 to go through Grace Hospital. And then the extension out to Festival Drive of Route 22, the improvements on the 677, the 671, and the 672, the service up to Highland Point, and then creating a new route or changing routes within Linden Woods and Charleswood to connect better to the schools. The other thing that's important in here to note is that we realize that there's always still a lot more work to be done. So on page 10, we've outlined future considerations for the 2027 annual service plan. This isn't an exhaustive list, but this is a list of what we know we need to look at in the next year based on the feedback that we receive and also our own investigations. So taking a look at the entire network in South St. Patel, including the routing of the FX2 and the F6 and all feeder routes. Taking a look at the entire network within Charleswood, including the routing of the FX3, which now goes over the William Glenn Parkway to Portage Avenue and then up past Grace Hospital. And the entire route network in Northwest Winnipeg, including Maples, Amber Trails, Aurora, and Highland Point, and an evaluation of all the service to the University of Manitoba. So what we're asking here is that these proposals be referred to the budget process, but then there's others in there that we just plan to do already that don't require additional funding. That's the end of my presentation.
Okay, Councillor Chambers.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I'm looking at Winnipeg Transit Annual Service Plan 2026 and looking at the first page there in item D. Adding extra half trips to the evening community route 671 Dalhousie to the community route 672 to accommodate higher than expected evening demand from the University of Manitoba Pembina Highway, proposed to begin September 2027 at a cost of $7,525 in 2027 and $26,000 in 2028. So your intent here is to hold off doing anything till September of 2027?
We don't have the funding to do it before then. If we had the funding before then, we could do it.
Do you need $7,525?
That's what it
I'll find
says.
it.
That's what it
I'll
says.
find it.
We wouldn't be able to do that in time for this September, but if we had the funding, we could do it for December. We already had to set the schedules.
But it'll be a different amount, wouldn't it?
Little less.
It would be slightly less than the 26,000 because it would just be $27, so 2.5% or 2%
Let's
less.
have a conversation.
You see board available.
Okay.
And if anybody's wondering what the half trips are, it's
Yeah.
because
Ours.
the issue right now is students being able to leave the University of Manitoba and get home, especially when evening classes end. We've had a lot of discussions with UMSU and the University of Manitoba administration, and this was an issue. We need to see more service so people could get home in the evening. So that's where this comes from. There's not a lot of people heading in the other direction at that time of day,
Right.
though, on those routes.
Evening demand. Okay, Councillor Sharma.
Be slightly more because it would start earlier in December opposed to next year.
It's only 2 weeks in December, so it's tough to say. Maybe the additional cost of those 2 weeks would balance out with the inflation, but roughly
You're
$26,000.
talking about you were gonna begin in September 2027 next year. If you're starting something in December this year.
Yeah, then it would be the 26,000 that's listed there is for the full year of
Yeah.
2028. So essentially you need to
Correct.
subtract inflation back to 2027 and then add the 2 weeks, the last 2 weeks in December. I don't know what it would exactly work out to, but
Now, I'm happy that some of the ones that we already referred are being re-referred, so it's all sort of in one place and packaged nicely. On page 10, Bjorn, you spoke a little bit about the 2027 annual service plan and things you're gonna be looking at. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on Northwest Winnipeg? Said a little bit there.
yeah, there's, as you know, there's a lot of growth happening and we've been able to, by looking at the boarding and alighting data, some data we get from PEGO, we can get a better picture of where people are coming from and going to and see where things are working and where they're not. So Waterford Green Common has become a real hub of activity, not just for transit users, but just in general. There's quite a concentration of commercial activity there, and there's also a fair bit of high density housing around there. So we want to make sure that that's being served adequately and people can get from there to other major destinations. There's a really strong demand for connections from there over to Garden City because it's the two major commercial areas in the city. And the other thing is looking at Aurora and Highland Point. So we have service in Aurora right now. We've got a proposal for Highland Point, but making sure that those work together as well as possible, that would be part of that evaluation. And then also connections from Amber Trails down into the Maples and especially to the schools that are going there, because we talked about Maples Collegiate. We need
So
to make sure that those connections have.
Thank you. So with our data, we're seeing how people are connecting with various neighborhoods within the north.
Yeah.
So some adjustments need to be made. Okay, thank you. Now this.
Now you've got a year of data that you can also, we've got the subjective sort of perspectives and then you have the data.
We don't, because of the GPS problems, we don't have the full year. We really got from November, December until now. And this report, because when we had to write it, is based only on the mid-December to mid-April data. We have now completed the spring schedule and we have that data, but we didn't have it in time for this plan.
And Bjorn, this map here that's attached, we're it's showing, on request zone in Highland Point, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about that, not regular service, more on request in that particular area.
Yeah, we would, this is extending that service there, but then also on request at off-peak times.
And so a combination of
Yeah.
regular service.
Like generally what we've been doing in newer neighborhoods, because on request doesn't work at peak times because there's so many people needing to get on. But at off-peak times, especially when an area is new and there's not a lot of people getting on at once, going in the same direction, they're kind of going all over the place, when it's more discretionary travel, that's where on request is a much better idea, at least at the beginning. And then in some neighborhoods, what we're expecting is we'll get to the point where there's enough users that it's too much for on request. And at that time, we propose switching to a fixed route, but we haven't hit that yet in any area.
So on request likely here off-peak times?
Yeah.
And other times would be.
The fixed route here that you see here, the 334.
Okay. So the other thing, I think, and I think you highlighted it, but the order that is in the report of the recommended service improvements, that has been put through their prioritization matrix. You will remember, committee members,
What?
they have put it through their prioritization matrix. Is that what you're calling it, Bjorn?
Yeah, that's a fancy technical way of saying we basically evaluated them all against each other. And this is the ranking
And this
that
is
we
the order,
determined.
you should put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got A, B, C, D, E, but anyways,
Yeah, on page 9, it's all listed 1 to 6.
okay.
And this is something that we wanted to be clear, this is our recommendation, but we realize that there are other considerations beyond just ours, and elected officials and the budget working group are free to disagree with that. We just wanted to be clear that this is what we came up with.
I'm sorry, so what's the recommendation in there?
I can read out the order.
Just before you do that, question related to that. This isn't ranked, is this ranked in a particular order or
Yes.
just?
Yeah,
It is.
so this is,
Right, in priority, according to transits, we had a report that they would be coming forward saying, you know, how do you prioritize? Who makes the most noise, who's least costly, whatever, but now this is kind of like a buffet when the budget working group goes into decisions and they will say, okay, we've got X amount for new service. What are the priorities? This is the public services recommendation.
Yeah.
And then we go from there.
And how have you prioritized if you're saying it's the largest residential area in Winnipeg that doesn't have service and we've got it second last? I don't understand that.
it was really looking at the fact that these other areas are ones that they have existing transit service that's not working for people, and people moved into those areas expecting that the transit service that is already in place would work for them. So it's fixing what doesn't work is a priority over new neighborhoods, even though Highland Point is the highest priority for a neighborhood that doesn't have, for a residential neighborhood that doesn't have existing service. Extension to Festival Drive is ranked higher than Highland Point because this issue has been around longer. We've been having requests for service out there for probably 10 years. So
Before I
that's
was elected.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I hear what you're saying, Bjorn, but Chair, I'll tell you, I take issue with not so much Bjorn, but planning development. Okay, we're talking about fixing what exists in current neighborhoods, but we're making new neighborhoods and not getting the service there. That's an issue.
That is an
Right.
issue.
So we're talking
Is an
out of
issue.
two sides of our mouth, and I know it's not just our level of government in these conversations. But we're making new developments, but not giving the service there.
Yeah, I hope that all these items on today's agenda inspire all of us to discuss funding options with the province and greater beings other than just us, because we're like, I don't know, 16, 18 million for next year, in the next 2 years, and you know, we've built an incredible foundation. We've got Transit Plus things underway. We've got prioritization systems. We've got dashboards. We're really organized in transit and reviewing, and we have a huge demand. And wait till the next report, right? So,
So just with that then, like, I see this priority list of how many items are here? 6?
yeah,
Six.
6.
6, yeah. But again, it's the existing and new. They're, I know you have to prioritize it, but there's sort of two different conversations. So we'll have that discussion later, I guess, in our budget meetings.
Where the politicians get involved. So this is the public services recommendations based on what we approve for them to prioritize.
And Festival Drive, is that not new?
No, that's.
No, that's been around for a while.
It's not
There's-
retired.
No. There, it's intensified a lot recently with the opening of the Costco and there's some multifamily that's opened in the last couple
When
of
did
years.
transit start there?
We don't have any there.
Right, but so there's no transit there.
No, exactly, but we've been getting requests for service for there for longer than
Highland Point is.
Highland
conceived.
Point. It's just because
It's not entirely true either, because Festival Drive, the motion just came recently in the last little while.
No,
That
but
is-
this,
Well, no,
the
before
demand
that
to
motion,
go out there, like there's, like I worked on this with Garth Rogers before I was
And I know the
elected.
need there, it's needed, but I think it's all in parallel. The Highland Point is, we're getting on to phase 6 right away, building out.
Yeah.
There are so many homes out there occupied, fully occupied, more coming, 2 schools coming out there.
the fact that it's number 5 doesn't mean it's a low priority, it just means it's the 5th of these list of high priorities. Yeah.
But I'm gonna put something on the record about the festival, right? People with disabilities, when True North built that practice ring out
And the ice.
by
palace.
the Assiniboine Downs, people with disabilities have been asking and we're always being declined to get outside of the perimeter over there. So that they can actually go to the Red River Expo. Well, you can because there are extra bus service was added, but in the winter, there were few persons with disabilities couldn't get out there. And because there was no transit route under the policy out there, then we weren't providing a service, so therefore you couldn't take Transit Plus out there either. So there has been a demand for transit out that way. Sorry, Councillor Sharma, but
No,
for
I'm
very,
agree with
very,
that.
very.
Always say there is, I'm well aware, and I hear your point. I support Festival Drive, they came here, and I'm very aware of the residential development there. But we also need to look at a neighborhood that's almost fully built out, that has 2 schools coming, right in that Highland Point neighborhood. It's been on the agenda here for quite a while. I appreciate the work of the department. And yes, we're gonna have robust discussions in the next budget process.
The Festival Drive extension, you mentioning it reminded me of one thing that I wanted to bring up, because when this came to this committee previously, there was a few people who were speaking to it who thought that this is service outside the city. I know you weren't saying this, but I know others were. This is within the city limits. Festival Drive is basically the edge of the city, but even though it's past the perimeter, it is within city limits.
I'm looking for private. Can you please what does it say in this report regarding?
For the prioritization, sure, I'll read this.
And this is privatization related to on request.
No, this is, we've got 6 proposals that all would require funding. So basically what we're saying is, if you're not gonna fund them all, here's the order in which we think they should be funded. So you pick the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whichever it's going to be. So the top priority is changing Route 22, so it goes through Grace Hospital.
Right.
Second one is also Route 22, extending it out to Festival Drive.
Yeah.
Number 3 is adding service on the 677. So this connects the outlet mall over to Seal Station. After that, it's adding those extra trips in the evening on the 671 and 672. After that, it's the new service to Highland Point. After that, it's the new service between Lindenwoods and Oak Park and Shaftesbury High Schools. So those are, they're all priorities for us. This is the order we think they should be implemented in if they don't all get funded. These are this is our priority list.
That's priority, right?
Yeah.
I heard something about privatization.
Might be me stumbling over my words, prioritization.
Priority.
Yes, not.
Okay, Councillor Chambers, you got a
I
question?
gotta get my hearing aids.
Yeah, and I don't know if more information can come forward, but the province during their spring budget announced free transit for youth. How does that impact on this annual service plan?
doesn't impact the annual service plan because it was actually written before that came out, but there's a whole other report that Lori will be presenting on that, so just leave that there.
That's
Yes, we have lots to say.
Good.
Okay, so I did have one question, Bjorn, like when we look at the data, you know, the chart, the dashboard, and it was noted too, one of the media noted it, in regards to the blue line and, or any of them really, not any of them, but a lot of them that go through downtown. We really need to get our downtown tight so that the buses can flow through downtown to increase the
Yeah.
rates, right?
And the one thing it's kind of most obvious, because the blue line is our most major line, but also when you open up this, the route dashboards, the first thing that comes up is the blue line on weekday, and everybody sees
I know.
66.6% on-time performance and our target is 75.
Right. So the question is, how do you get it to 75?
So we will be working on that by rewriting the schedules so that they better adhere to what we actually see.
Right.
But traffic downtown is so variable that that's extremely difficult because we can take a look at what the on-time performance is and where we're incurring delay for
Right.
1 year.
Right.
And it can be completely different for the next year because of construction
Right.
projects, maintenance projects, but also just where development's taking place.
Yeah.
Things shift around, even
Yeah.
weather really affects
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
So we will do our best to rewrite the schedules to always improve that. But there are certain things that can only be fixed by infrastructure. And that's
Yeah.
why we have the Downtown Rapid Transit Corridor study going on right now.
Right.
That we're designing what rapid transit would look like through the downtown for the Blue Line and all of the FX routes. And that's one thing that would really make the difference.
So I think that's a really important part for the committee to know that like in a lot of these, if it's not meeting the performance levels, you know, you'll tweak it and reroute it, or well, not reroute it, but you'll tweak it, but, and there are variables like construction, like floods, like bridges, like various things. But it is to really, not freeway the downtown, but to really get some dedicated transit corridors in the downtown,
Yeah.
right?
There's actually a really good illustration for this in the State of the System report. I'll highlight something that really wasn't working well, but there's other data beside it where you can actually see
Yeah.
where it is. So I'm going to go to, this is in Appendix A.
Yeah.
When you get to sort of the top 5 and bottom 5 towards the end, I'll give you the page number as soon as I get there.
Where do you mean, okay, sorry, just wait here. Appendix A in the report, not
Yeah.
attached.
Appendix A, so State of the System, and it's page 20 of that PDF.
Okay, so there's a problem here. I don't have page 20. I don't have any appendices.
I'm on Demus right now on the agenda. And so there's the main report, so it's a separate attachment, Appendix A.
On the annual service plan?
Yeah, it's called Appendix A, State of the System.
Oh, sorry, mine's all folded up. Oh, yes, there's some, sorry. Okay. Okay, so anyway, sorry, Bjorn, go on.
On page 20, we have on-time performance of the primary transit network. You remember back to last fall, we had a lot of issues with on-time performance in the D12 and D13.
Right,
We
Right.
rewrote those for
Right.
December and they went, so take a look at Saturday and Sunday.
right. That's very scary.
Abysmal on-time performance,
Yeah.
28.8% on D12 on Saturdays,
Yeah.
34.8% on Sundays. When we were preparing for the December schedule, we only had time to rewrite the weekday one. You can see how much better the weekday one is, 72.3. But the weekday one was as bad as Saturday and Sunday, almost as bad as Saturday and Sunday before we rewrote it. We could fix these problems with schedule rewrites because the on-time performance wasn't good, but it was consistently not good in the same way. When you're talking about Portage Avenue and Main Street, there's so much variability. We can rewrite it so we'd be perfectly on time or close to being perfectly on time. But then which trips are off schedule suddenly changes because it's totally different once you're on the busiest streets downtown.
Yeah.
So in cases where a schedule rewrite can solve it, you can see where we did it here on the D12 and D13 on weekdays. And then for April, we redid the Saturday and Sunday. So when we report next year, you'll see that being a lot better. But yeah, Portage Avenue and Main Street are a lot different and a lot more difficult. And so those are the ones where it's infrastructure that's going to make the difference.
Right.
Because no matter what we do, precise 10-minute window that was off schedule or 15-minute window was off
No.
schedule, it shifts all the time.
And that is that is the bit of a challenge with this connecting system is the other variables that come into play.
Yeah.
Okay, so, excellent, okay. Okay, do we have any other questions on the annual service plan? State of the system?
No, I just wanted to ask a question about the public accountability, transparency part. I noticed I'm taking the FX2 at the concert hall quite often, and I'm noting that the promise of how many minutes or head time, whatever that is, isn't actually happening. So that's showing up in the measurements of performance of that route.
There, so I just brought up the dashboard for the FX2 on weekdays, and you're talking about the evening.
That's
the app-
evening, but I'm talking the peak hour from 3 to 6. I think.
There's an FX2 scheduled every 6 minutes,
Yeah,
roughly.
but that ain't happening.
The on-time performance is 67.5%, so it's
67.
67.5. So yeah, there definitely are some late buses. It's not bad, but we have some improvements.
Seems to
make.
be when I'm always there. Anyway, I'm just curious. Anyway, but it shows that. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Okay, so, I just want to thank you, Bjorn, and your team and all of Transit, like, it's been a really, really, interesting year, I guess I'd say, and we've all learned a lot and we're growing and we're switching to this big system. But I know you're really dedicated, your team, Adam, and everyone else you've got on your team. And I guess this whole dashboard even highlights it even more, and this report where you can see this information, that people know that we're, you know, that you're taking all this detailed feedback and working on it and putting it into these systems and comparing it and making it open and transparent. And it may not be, 50% even, right? But we're putting it out there and we're working on it. So,
It's how we measure it.
The whole point in all of this is that this is the biggest change in our history. We have a solid system now where the fundamentals work, but there's a lot of details that we need to work on.
Yeah.
And we're committed to that, and we're committed to the transparency, which is why you've got these dashboards and all these
Yes.
reports here.
yes.
We've outlined everything we've done, everything we're doing, and I've done a bunch of media interviews on this. One thing I've said is, please keep the feedback coming, because
Yes.
it's not just that you like this or you don't like this. What we need is, I like this or don't like this because of these reasons. And
Yes.
I personally and other people in the group that I manage, we're reading through all of this feedback.
Yeah.
And we're taking it into account, and that's where a lot of these come from. If we weren't getting constructive feedback, our job would be a lot harder, but we're
Yeah.
getting a lot of it.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
committed to making these changes.
And I do think, and we've talked about this, is that I don't want to maybe say a shoestring, but we are operating a very lean machine for transit. And Lori's nodding her head here, so, very lean machine.
So, just to put it on the public record, you do have a scheduled planner that is working this out. I mean,
Yeah.
we all know about the previous planner that is now in a different role in a different city, but we have the dedicated staff towards getting this right.
Yes, I'm hiring 2 schedulers because I've had 2 retirements, or one has happened, another one is coming. But we have 4 schedulers and a senior scheduler, so there's 5 people that are always working on the schedules. But yeah, the team is in place. We added a transit planner who's working right now specifically on bus stop locations, so it's all happening.
And typically, all of the information that you receive goes to those schedulers and they're able to.
Real into
Yeah,
it.
and the schedule is, we even have a scheduler portal set up, so bus drivers can log in, and if they notice things that need to be changed, it goes directly from the bus operators to the schedulers, and they can take that into account.
Well, and that's important. How much feedback or information are you taking from the actual drivers in terms of driving through things?
Quite a bit, and putting that schedule portal in place was actually a really big benefit to everybody, because before it depended on a bus operator having the time to come up physically talk to us. And with their work schedules, they couldn't always do that. And then they had to send an email or something, and it just didn't always work. But now with this portal, they can literally log in and say, there's issues at this segment of this route at this time of day, please look into it. write it out in detail and the schedulers look into that.
They're telling us what they're experiencing out there and they're speaking directly to the schedulers that do this kind of work. So that's a real connection for us. It's an important connection. But just to go back a little bit, you talked about having schedulers in place and such here. During how many schedulers do you have?
3 plus, or 4 plus the senior one,
How many are in Edmonton?
a lot more.
20 plus.
Yeah.
So while we have the schedulers in place to do this work, it does take them time because they're a small crew.
Sure.
They're a mighty crew, but they're a small crew. So
Wow, lean machine.
just for comparison's sake.
Yeah, so just on the driver's thing, so you just said 67% performance on time, right? So you would talk to the driver, like, I figured out why it was more than 6 minutes one trip. There was a difficult passenger, right? So probably slowed everything down, right?
And
So that's the kind of input you would get from the drivers, because they're the ones experiencing it.
it's also, the drivers, they'll often tell us the why behind things, because when we take a look at our GPS data, we can see where the bus slows down and where it gets off schedule. But when a driver comes and says, oh, it's because I have to make this lane change, it's very awkward. So maybe it's changed to the signal time, but maybe it's putting in a transit priority signal, maybe it's actually building a slightly different curb cut or something like that that allows them to make the lane change easier. Those are the things that we depend on the operators to tell us, even if we already know where the problem is, they can help fill in the why.
Okay. Okay, so Counselor Chambers, I guess, or who would like to move this forward, the annual service plan, state of the system? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, now we just have 2 more. We've got just this bus stop removal and relocation. That's a motion. We'll talk about that. I do have a question to the public service on that, and then we'll get into our big one about the free transit.
Madam Chairperson, if we could just break, I'll have. It's
quarter to
No,
12.
you're not understanding.
Okay, say it again.
I need to go, a clerk can take me over by the.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Okay,
just
so you want
need
a
to
5-minute
go
break?
do that, otherwise it's just really quick.
Okay, 5-minute break. Okay, I'm going to reconvene the Standing Policy Committee on Public Works, and we're going to now enter into a motion that came from a committee member, our committee, I believe, item number, where are we at here?
Number
6, I don't know, 6, okay, item number 6, okay. So this is a motion then, just, okay, what is the motion?
So back in 2026, June 10th, at our last meeting, we provided an extension of time for this item. My understanding is that the intent of this item was rolled into report, the previous report, item 5.
I kind of glossed over it so I can explain it in more detail now, just so everybody's got it.
Sure.
Technically, we did deal with it, but at its core, we were asked to assess all the bus stop changes that we made.
Yes.
And then report back on it. We haven't been able to do the entire thing yet. We just haven't had the time, and we needed to focus on the accessibility of the bus stops because that tied into the report that Teresa presented previously on the Accessible Transportation Standards Regulation. So what we've been able to determine so far is that approximately 1,100 bus stops need accessibility improvements in order to meet these minimum standards. The costing for that and the timeline that we could make those improvements in, depending on how much funding is available, that was presented by Teresa, but basically it's $1.25 million per year. If we want to do it, I think 7 years. If you want to double that to $2.5 million, that brings it down to about 12 years or so. I don't remember the exact numbers. And if it was 3.75 million, then we can get it done in 7 years. So that's the accessibility aspect of it. In addition to that, we're still committed to carrying out what this motion outlines for us, and that's to assess the location of every bus stop. Because a lot of times we selected a near side location, but far side was possible, and things like that. And then also we've now spend more time figuring out what infrastructure we want to have in, such as shelters, benches, and things like that. And in some cases, it might involve moving a bus stop because there just isn't enough space at a location to add anything else. So that's what we're going to report back on through the 2027 annual service plan. All we've had time to do for this one is to say about 1,100 bus stops don't meet accessibility requirements. We'll do the rest of the assessment this coming year. Right now, we have 2 summer students out in the field that are gathering information about all the infrastructure, just documenting so we know exactly what is at every bus stop, because when you have thousands of them, it's actually a big task to make sure we know exactly where every sign, shelter, bench, garbage receptacle, all these things are. And then also, if there's a concrete platform, or is it made out of paving stones? Is it connected to the nearest sidewalk? Is there even a sidewalk there? Is there a curb cut? All
Like the
those types of
service
things.
roads, all
Yeah.
that saga.
So we've got summer students that are just gathering that data. We added a new transit planner specifically for this type of work that was funded late last year. That person started about 2 months ago, and they're the one who is now taking this data, do all these assessments. So we will be prepared to report on it starting the 2027 annual service plan.
Counselor Edie?
And just to confirm, but Transit is consulting with the Universal Design Coordinator, the City of Winnipeg, out of Property and Development.
Absolutely. We're also developing.
And I think we have standards in the Universal Design Standards
Yeah.
document for this.
We do. Then there's also the ATSR regulation that Teresa is talking about.
Yeah.
And one of the things we're doing is we're distilling some of that information down into our own internal guideline, like a bus stop placement and design guide. So that basically, and when we, a lot of sometimes in the design work and the construction being contracted out, we want to be able to present a document to the contractor to say, you know, here's what we need. You can base your designs and your planning on this.
So, and that budget, we already voted for that, right? So
That got referred to the budget process.
so a question though, like decommissioning is stopped. Was, I think he was relating it to this report, but the condition, what's the cost to decommission? That's why it's some hourly wages and
It depends on what it
maybe
is.
chopping out a concrete pad and putting in grass.
Yeah, it's most complicated if there's a concrete pad, we have to bust that out and lay down sod. I don't know offhand what the cost is. Sometimes it's just the signage removal, and we've basically done all of that, but then sometimes there's even the paving stones left in place, so we gotta remove that or remove a bench. That's generally part of this, yeah.
And I know the bus shelter stuff that's at Cathedral McGregor is going over to Inkster McGregor, I'm sure. So it's good, you're reusing things, right? So-
Yeah, we're reusing everything as much as we can.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't think that's your big focus right now is to worry about what cost of each decommissioning is.
Yeah. Wait, there's an average cost.
Right, there, it's
It's just
exactly,
like an average cost to decommission a wading pool.
but different bus sizes too, right? There's different shelter sizes, so lengths, the whole bit, exactly, okay. Okay, so then I think what we'll do is we'll see this report as information, that would be my recommendation to the committee, is that how the committee feels, okay? So moved, Councilor Reed is going to receive it as information, okay, all in favor? Carry. Oh, sorry.
Is there a distinction between a bus shelter and a heated bus shelter?
Yeah, but exactly that, we just call them unheated and heated. The unheated ones are smaller. They're 5 feet by 11 feet, and the heated ones are larger. The smallest one is 8 feet by 15 feet.
So do we have, in terms of the bus stop removal and relocation, do we have a specific plan for heated bus shelters?
What do you mean by that?
Like, are we implementing any additional, I know that Mayor Bowman, during his tenure, that was one of his focuses, was heated bus shelters. Are we planning to add any additional heated bus shelters with this relocation plan?
Not just as part of this relocation plan, but we do have contract out right now. It might have just closed. I don't remember the details, where we were going to add about another. You remember, Greg? It was about 10 more heated shelters, I think. So
There are 11, yeah, I can't recall.
something around
specifically.
that. And then anything beyond that, we would have to bring forward a proposal. We don't have funding for any heated shelters beyond this additional 10 or 11.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, because we had a report actually, I think it was maybe 3 months back that talked about who the bus shelters too, there was a report that came forward, okay.
Okay, call the
Okay.
question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, so we're gonna move up the Winnipeg Transit Youth Ride Free Pilot Program. Okay, so I guess this is yours, Lori, right?
Sure, I'll speak to it, but
Yeah.
it'll likely be a team effort in terms of
Yeah.
having to address any questions that you might have. But yeah, I'll summarize the report for everybody just to get us started. So the report does provide the outline of what the program is that we're proposing to allow youth aged 11 to 17 and high school students aged 18 to 21 to ride transit for free for the 26-27 school year. So it's a 12-month period, but it runs the school calendar year, September through August, as needed to proceed with our targeted launch date, which is this September 2026. So the total estimated number of youth in this age group is about 65,000 individuals in Winnipeg. And there's an estimated 60,000 of them that are attending school. And I just wanted to highlight that just to make sure we all appreciate that this has the potential to be a massive program for Winnipeg Transit. That is twice the size of our UPass program in terms of potential participants.
Yes. Okay, we're gonna come back to that, but anyways, okay.
It's important to keep this in mind as we go through the report, just to provide some context for both the financial and potential operational impact to the department. And additionally, it's important to highlight that we've had to make a number of assumptions in planning for this program. We've worked under very tight timelines, and we had to make some assumptions, most notably with regards to the potential uptake and interest in it and the impact that it will have on service. So the general program that's been drafted includes transit providing a fare product that will permit youth who show it, along with appropriate ID to the bus driver, to ride transit for free. The province will assume the responsibility for distributing the passes to the eligible youth through the school system. One of Transit's largest concerns is whether the service will be able to meet the demand during peak hours specifically. And to mitigate some of the potential impact, service is being increased as part of this fall service change, specifically increasing service on a number of feeder route trips serving most high schools near bell times at the start and end of the school day, which includes doubling the number of trips to some schools. Where there's one, there's now two. Where there's two, there's now four. And also adding service to some primary lines serving some high schools where capacity on existing service is already limited. There is a risk related to Transit's ability to meet service requirements. If the demand exceeds the proposed service, there could be pass-ups and crowding. The service will be closely monitored and will be adjusted where possible through the fall, and service levels will be reassessed for the winter schedule. So it is something that we're going to be monitoring very closely. Also just want to highlight that there are no additional costs included in our costing model to support existing service. So we're assuming that there is sufficient capacity within the service to absorb the non-peak and weekend demand. And so we haven't included any additional costing or service related to off-peak. All of the assumptions about the need for added transit service are also based on the assumption that any of the school divisions that operate school buses for students will continue to provide that service. The costing estimates reflect really two things. One is the lost fare revenue that's in our budget related to youth, and the cost of providing the added service. And it's estimated to be 16.49 million for the 12-month period running September 26 through August 27. At this time, the province has limited its contribution to $10 million, which is not enough to cover the total cost of the program for the entire 12-month period. This does create some uncertainty as to whether the program will be offered for that entire 12 months or not. And there is a risk that if the funding gap cannot be mitigated, that the program could potentially end in March. The recommendation is to refer the $6.5 million funding gap to the 2027 budget process for consideration. As the program is being launched as a pilot project, to provide the department the opportunity to assess the impact on the service, and appreciating at this time the funding commitment is not enough to cover all the costs, The number of passes that are available initially will be capped at 30,000. However, we will be assessing the impact on service, and there is potential perhaps that we will consider the ability to provide more. The recommendations in the report will allow the city to proceed with entering into a contribution agreement with the province for their funding commitment in the amount of $10 million, and to add funding and FTEs for 2026 and 2027 to facilitate the additional service that's being proposed to the extent that funding has been committed. And as I previously mentioned, the recommendation is that the funding gap in the amount of $6.49 million be referred to the 2027 budget process.
Okay, Councillor Chambers, we'll start with you and then we'll go to Councillor Eady.
Yeah, tons of questions here. Thank you, Laurie, for that presentation. $6.5 million gap. You did mention weekend demand. Why would there be weekend demand if this is only for school days?
No,
Well, the youth can use the pass anytime. What we did not include in our costing was off-peak costs or added service for off-peak. So we're assuming that the system has existing capacity to absorb weekend demand.
Okay.
Yeah,
So that's from a staffing perspective, that you have the ability to meet that demand
from the service.
from service.
Yeah,
So what about buses themselves, the infrastructure? Do
Yeah.
we need more buses?
we will potentially need more buses. Right now, what we're using is the existing buses that we have within our fleet that we actually didn't need for the primary network. So we are retaining those buses right now. So the bus fleet is being maintained at a higher level than it would be otherwise. But as of right now, we do have the buses. However, those buses will need to be replaced if the program continues on. And that is part, it's included, some of those replacement costs are included in the service.
One of the challenges with this though is that because now we're essentially using up whatever extra buses we had for this additional service for schools, any service expansions at peak times beyond this will need new buses. There's no more so-called freebies or anything. We just will not have enough buses if you want to add anything else at rush hour after this.
So above the $10 million that was offered by the province, your reports say that it's $6.5 million light, somewhere around there. But that's just in staffing and extra service. It has nothing to do with adding more buses.
That's correct. It doesn't include the actual purchase of new buses. It does include an amortization for their use of the increased fleet that they're requiring. So there will be a contribution amount included in that service, but it's not an actual outright in terms of a capital commitment to purchase additional buses.
Was there any discussion in terms of how long this would last? Is it supposed to last in perpetuity? Is there a sunset date?
Yeah, so there is no sunset dates specifically. I think as of right now, we're just working with the 1 year. Whether there will be, what's going to happen after this 1 year, I don't think we actually.
But the funds don't cover the 1 year already, according to our estimation, so
Correct.
it would probably end in March currently.
Yeah, I
as
think
we see it.
yeah. Well, I think it depends what happens with the budget process and maybe some ongoing conversations that have at that point in time with regards to how we're going to cover the funding shortfall subsequent to March.
Well, and that's, province makes an announcement, but the city ends up paying for it. If there's this $6.5 million gap that we now have to look at addressing through our budgetary process. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Eady?
All right, well, non-peak hours, there's sport tournaments and stuff at schools, but so there's 60,000 qualified students going to high school in this city. We're gonna give out 30,000, it's our responsibility to make up the passes that are going to the students, is that right?
To print them? You mean?
Yeah, we're gonna hand out 30, well. Yeah, so we're making up the cards for the system, but
Yeah.
which I don't know what that cost is, but my concern is, okay, so who is actually, is it the school divisions themselves that are making a decision as to who's gonna get one of those
Yeah.
30,000 passes. So they're the ones who are gonna decide the criteria for passing them out, is that correct?
Now, you see, I want to just quote a little quote here that the superintendent of the Winnipeg School Division.
That's only one school division.
That's only one school division. I'm just gonna say, it's our understanding that any child who needs a bus pass will get one, and that's how we'll distribute them. He's very confident that the province will ensure all students are able to get the free passes. And he does not expect his division would need to determine a criteria to cap the number of passes.
Anyway,
But at whose cost?
anyway, but, so,
Free transit.
okay, no,
Let's go.
well,
Okay, continue on, Ross.
well, and just, so. I'm not sure where you want to jump in, Councillor Sharma,
The
but
passes, I was gonna
Oh.
ask, so is it just one time you use it over and over again, or you need a pass for every time you ride? a
it's
bus?
like having a monthly.
Is it like a ticket to bus?
No, it's not a ticket. It's it's an annual pass. So
Yes.
you would have one pass and you would show it every time.
And the province will be making those cards up,
No, we are making them up.
Is it one of
We give
these?
them to the province to deliver.
Is it one of these?
No,
That's
we-
my
The province
payroll
will
card,
be-
is that?
It's gonna be a paper.
Yeah, the
paper.
province will be delivering it, you mentioned, distributing them, correct?
Well, the province, but the school divisions will, so just on that, okay. So the distribution will be, I guess, they'll go to the principal of whatever school, St. John's High School or whatever. Now, I'm not aware of any school divisions that are providing bus service for high school students unless it's in, like, some of the school divisions in Winnipeg also are make up, like the Seven Oaks School Division is also West St. Paul. So where they may be doing busing of high school students, but within the city, are there that many high schools providing busing for high school students?
There's not many, yeah, in Charleswood to get from, that's the reason there was that proposal as part of the annual service plan is that a lot of students that live in Lindenwoods, their catchment schools are Oak Park and Shaftesbury.
Oh, right.
And so it's unusual, but the school division is operating yellow bus service for them. And there are some, I believe, where they're operating it for 7 and 8 students, because there's a lot of K to 8 schools. So some 7 and 8 still get school busing, but they wouldn't when they move into grade 9.
So, well, anyway, so we have enough money there. The province is providing enough for our estimate to go to March, and that's an estimate, that's not the actual facts. The province does announce their budget in February, March of 27. So I don't know, in dialogue with our public service with the province, was there any discussion that if it's short, to continue it for the rest of the year to August, that they'll make an announcement in their next budget?
Well, we'll be coming forward with a report in March, assessing the program. So whatever comes after that will come after that. But we'll bring information forward and a determination needs to be made.
But
Yeah,
we can
at
give
this
them an
time-
estimate how it's going.
Right, because there's a lot of assumptions in this report with respect to the usage, right, that we've had to make. So we'll have to see how it's used, and then some robust discussion can take place and some decisions can be made then.
So I think it's good, like, if no one really knows, it's good that, we'll sort of see how it unfolds, but this is the part that I'm very worried about. Is how do we monitor how many people are using it? Because 20%, well, you tell us, how are you gonna monitor this every month? How are you gonna know, other than the,
Bus stops.
the,
Bus stops,
Bus stops.
yes.
Is there a button to push it on?
Well, tell us, how are you gonna monitor how many people are getting on and off?
We can only do it indirectly.
Sorry.
We can only do it
Indirectly.
indirectly. We need to take a look at how busy the buses are that is serving the schools.
There's no but.
Well, the bus driver's like trying to drive me, how many buttons?
There's
there is, but
but we do have for other things, but it just wouldn't work in this case.
Yeah, because there would be so many, and then also because it's not an electronic form of fare payment where you're logging in each time somebody taps a card, we don't have a way to know how many times each passes.
Well, but
It's a good program, but there's gonna be unintended
Well,
it's a big data
consequences, so
gap.
we have to monitor as we go.
Well, help me out here. Okay, so McCray and Salter, D11. You're going to St. John's High School. You're gonna get off there, right? Because that's where the stops are. Great, and Salter. It's truck. So, you'll already know before the program starts, how many people will get on and off of it there. So you should be able to measure what that increase is, right?
to some degree, because we will have our overloading, our reports from our drivers when things like that occur. But we'll also know how many passes are distributed, right? Because we're providing them to the schools, so we'll have some data there. But the challenge is how much are those passes being used, right? Because they're not electronic passes, so.
When they're not going to, yeah, because they're gonna be using it for, if they are users, they're gonna be using it all the time, right?
Right.
Not just to
Well,
go to
they're able
school,
to use it
not just to
all
go
the
to
time.
school.
And are you making them tell you how many they're distributing per school so that you can at least have some, you know, how many went to Vincent Massey School, how many went to whatever elementary school, are you asking them to?
We want them to tell us that.
You want them to, yeah, because again, like, let's look at the statement here, like, if schools are forced to provide passes to only some students, that would undermine the intent of the free program, like, that's just terrifying. I find it terrifying, so let's just assume come fall, people are, you know, they were learning the new transit system. Oh, and they like it, so there's more people coming, they want to come in the mornings or at peak times. We're not gonna have room for any more growth, you know, is that what I'm understanding? We're not gonna have any room for big growth because we've got all these students, which is wonderful, but is that correct, that you're gonna be a capacity for buses at prime times?
I guess it depends on, it really depends on when and where they're using it. Because if a school gives out passes to every single student, but most of the ones that would walk, continue walking, or they bike, they continue biking, and there's only a moderate increase in the number that actually take the bus, that's a scenario that we can easily deal with. In fact, the best case scenario for not overwhelming our service is that they don't take the bus to school, and they just use it to go
Right.
visit their friends, go to work and all that kind of stuff outside of peak times. But it's impossible to estimate exactly when and where they're gonna use it and how many of them are gonna use it to go to school. So that's what we need to do our best to monitor.
So like, I'm a mom, if I heard there were free passes for kids to take the buses, so sure, I want my kid to take it, even if I drop the kid off half the time or 90% of the time. Oh, let the kid get a bus pass and try taking the bus to St. Tom Mall or whatever, right? Like, I'm just really worried about this, hopefully it won't come to fruition to the degree that, you know, and this all starts in September, one of our most favorable times of year where we have all kinds of university students and students and it's
One pass of learning.
and
at
lots
that
of
time.
people learning how to take the bus and trying to coordinate their schedules.
So when pass ups are always at their highest.
That's when pass-ups are at the highest before we even put kids on the bus.
But we're gonna do our best to monitor it, and make adjustments for the seasonal schedule changes where it may be needed more than in other places. But I think Bjorn and his team have done a phenomenal job in already since the announcement, preparing for where we would need this additional service. But again, these are assumptions, so they've done their best. And we'll see what September brings for us.
So when everyone's door knocking, we're gonna be dealing with lots of calls, there's gonna be lots of calls coming in, right? Like, it's just, I mean, I think it's great that the province is doing this, I think it's horrible that they're not funding it properly. And I know we have to see what happens and let it unfold, but we'll be challenged with monitoring it, with the ability to monitor it. It's just a huge wrench in all of this, and you guys have been working on this, when did you start working on this, Lori? They have the budget probably, right?
Well, May.
May. So she's been focused on finance, he's been focused, the route, people who are working on the routes for all our other issues, pulled off of that or on the side of the table, focusing heavily on this, right? I just think this is very unfair what's happened. But anyways, we're coming through with some half program.
We had about 2 to 3 weeks to create the additional schedules for this service, because by early June, we had to lock the fall schedule in.
For the people to drive.
Because then we're gonna have bus operators sign up coming up in July. It's a fairly long process to do all this, to get ready. So even though this is coming now for approval, we had to figure out already almost a month ago what the schedule would be.
I think this is a good program to roll out. It's always gonna be sort of painful to do it. It's a year program, right? And we can do it till March. Now, just a thought, I don't know if you've thought of this, but having a pause for a month sometimes so you can catch up and, adjust to what's needed. Like it's a continual each month, right? Ongoing for the year. But we know in December, students don't ride for a few weeks, they're out of school. So we have to think about how we can implement this properly, because we're executing it, right?
It's
So
crazy.
giving some thought to if there's a pause month that's needed there or something, or, I'm just throwing out ideas. It's more of a discussion probably. We have further thoughts on this, because we're gonna be drinking from a fire hose on this.
100%.
Respect, in terms of the.
And you look at the blue line that's at 67%, the first one that pops up already, 67% performance, right, on time, whatever. Two massive overpopulated high schools on the blue line, and I'm just picking this one because I know it pretty well. That's going to just be crazy.
Which overpopulated?
Vincent Massey and FRC.
Oh, great.
Anyways, it's.
Was having a thought, so we're gonna move this, we're working with the province, it is good. No, it's good to get high school students, I don't know if it's gonna change parents' minds, but like in my family, when my boys were going to high school, they wouldn't take, their mom wouldn't let them take the bus, didn't make them take a bus, so they got a ride, right? Usually. Anyway, so the uptake may not be that much, but so do we need to add in here, like, as you're working through this, Vic Transit, when can we get some reports just how things are working out? Like, do we need to add something to this to, like, when?
Do you have
Like,
some?
we'd really like to get an idea once you get a real solid handle on this.
Yeah, sorry, I neglected to mention that one of the recommendations does include a report back date. So we would be coming back in March 2027 to provide an update on.
But maybe we could have some verbals along the way, Councilor Chambers?
Yeah, thank you. Prior to the announcement, did anybody from the province connect with transit to say, this is what we're thinking about doing, what would it cost, et cetera? Any pre-consultation?
I asked the mayor on the floor council when this came out, and I didn't really want to do it, but I wanted on the record, 2 days, so maybe a week, that they were thinking of this before the budget announcement.
Yeah.
So, which at that point, it really worried me, and I think we talked about this somewhere.
Still does worry me.
Well, worried me that don't they really know what transit costs? Because this 10 million was for 4 other cities, or 4 cities in total, wasn't even this, so they've already beefed it up a bit, because I think they're doing a couple other cities, whatever that costs.
In Manitoba?
In Manitoba. The 10 million was for 4 cities. So now we've got 10 million for Winnipeg.
Here's a public transit
But
system.
it sort of, don't they, then it made me wonder, are we not telling them enough what the cost of transit is, right? Are we not communicating them enough? But anyways, we're here today and,
Well, Madam Chairperson, all they were thinking down at the province, which what they've been doing since they got there, is they said, well, this is for family affordability. High school students won't have to pay.
someone's gonna pay for it.
Yeah, well, I know somebody's paid for it, it's not free.
But that's the thing, you robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
like it's coming out of our budget.
Yeah, I
Very
get it.
frustrating.
No, I get it, I get it. I get it.
Very frustrating. So when all these pass-ups start in September and everyone gets on the bus and they can't even get on the bus because there's all these pass-ups. Again, it's gonna reflect poorly, comes back to the city, it's gonna reflect poorly on us. And that's gonna be very frustrating, but I'm happy we're doing this, but it was just not funded, so very disappointing. Anyways. Okay, so I had a couple other questions here. What is the transit youth, the under 12 crowd? What sort of uptake, recap us on that? What's
Yeah, the 11 and under ride for free. Do you?
11 and under ride for free? Do we have any kind of number? Wasn't it around 250,000 or something? Or not even, or was that the cost of it? Maybe it was 250,000. Just trying to remember what the.
Yeah.
So maybe just offline,
I'll have to take that away.
Yeah, maybe I'm just curious, and these ones probably, I don't know, send them on the bus, take the bus alone, 11 years old, probably not, maybe some do, but no, they have to ride with the parent, right?
Yeah, with the fare paying out.
Yeah, they have to ride with the parent. I'm just curious on that, because that one wasn't as impactful as maybe some people thought it might be, right? I do recall that.
Yeah.
I seem to recall we brought forward an estimate
Yes,
last time, so
there
we'll look
was.
for that.
There's some report on that.
I can tell you, I've been on buses where there's a mother or a father with like around a 7-8-year-old who probably would have had to pay right before.
So I do want to make another
They
motion,
are riding the bus.
add on something. I do want to add on that any permanent youth ride free program initiated by the province be cost neutral to the city. I don't know, we can ask, but we can write that into the report, right? Or we can make
We can make that an amendment to the
Amendment.
recommendations to put it in
I
recommendation.
don't know if it'll mean anything, but it's really disappointing. Like, it's just, you want to work as a partner, you want to work together on this, right? And especially the current government who was really, pushing the 50-50 for when it was canned. And I don't,
We need to get to the 50-50.
yeah, well, they don't want to do that. They don't want to do a 50-50. So you know what?
Maybe.
No, I was told they don't.
What?
I was told they don't want to do a 50-50.
They don't want, yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they need to do that,
Well, they need to, but,
like that government
Yeah.
previously
yeah,
went to that. Yeah.
yeah. So are we gonna print like only 30,000? Are we gonna, or how many are we gonna actually physically print?
Yeah, I'm not sure, actually. Yeah, I don't know right now,
Okay.
some of those details. And I do want to add that we want this program to be a success.
100%.
Absolutely.
And we're gonna work very hard in September to make sure that we do what we can do in order to facilitate that. I just think it's important that we talk about some of the concerns that we have.
Risks, yeah. And I do think we almost really need to print a lot of passes, because thinking, like I have some friends that are teachers now. Are you take the bus or the car? Are they gonna do that to every kid? No, they're just gonna dole them out, right? That's so, the intensity of teachers coming back in the fall and the stuff they have to do. I don't know how a school would begin to, criteria to let kids get, and they're all gonna want the passes right off the bat, because I'm sure that
It's not gonna be
it's
the,
gonna be saying you're gonna have free passes,
just
so.
to be clear, it's not gonna be the teachers, it's going to be the principal and the office of the school that are
Well,
giving
sure,
them
so-
out,
so how
not
do
the
you tell-
teachers.
Yeah, even more, it's gonna be that, right? So, anyways,
Add to their load,
we
whatever.
want it to work, we want it to be a success. I'm not seeing it, it's gonna happen, but we're gonna try, right? So
We're doing our best.
we're doing our best in the short window of time frame and the lack of funding that we've received.
I think what will happen is in the first, say, 3 months at the school, so that's, like November, September, October, November. And there's only 30,000, and then there's gonna be a whole bunch of other high school students are gonna say, well, what about me? So there's gonna have to be,
We can't.
there's gonna have to be more, yeah, I'm
Which
saying.
won't impact the
Just saying.
system, but. Okay, well, who wants to move this? I don't. I'll vote for it, but I don't wanna move it.
Are we including the amendment?
Yeah, so, right, can we include that amendment, folks?
Yep.
Whether it holds any weight at all or
So
not.
the amendment, if amenable, that we add the following new recommendation 8 and renumber the remaining recommendation accordingly. And that recommendation would read that any permanent youth ride-free program initiated by the province of Manitoba be cost neutral to the city of Winnipeg.
Okay,
Yep, I'll move that.
How about, can we,
As
sorry,
amended.
what was the word? Yeah, that any permanent youth ride free program delivered in collaboration with the province?
Initiated by.
initiated by the province.
Cost neutral to the city, that means not adding.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay,
Okay.
All in favor?
Move it as amended.
as amended, carried.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Okay, and I have one question for you, go not on the record here. I'll just ask you, it's just a housekeeping thing. We'll take a break now till 1 o'clock.
1 o'clock.
What time is it?
I don't know.
12:30.
You know what, I have to,
12:30.
have to go out to get lunch today, so.
Okay, so what time are we taking a break till? 1:30, you better
1:30.
tell Jim, can you
Yeah,
tell
yeah.
Jim and all these guys?
Sure.
1:30.
Jim and
Ian will be here.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are reconvening our Standing Policy Committee on Public Works today on June 29th, 2026. And now we've got the Public Works team here. So I'm just wondering if it's okay with committee if we move the snow and ice removal, the annual snow and ice removal report up sooner. Mr. Cantor's got a very important meeting he's got to get to. And we would really want to hear this. So are you guys okay with that? Perfect. Okay.
Anything to help you.
All right, so welcome, Mr. Berezowski. You can introduce your team here.
Yeah, we have Mr. Michael Cantor, the manager of streets here, who will be providing the narrative on the report today. And Ms. Lori Nichols, our manager of asset management. There's some level of service documentation in here that we thought there might be some questions or a requirement for explanation because it's fairly fresh in the presentation style for this year that we didn't have in the past. So on that note, Michael, let's provide the overview of what's been done and what consideration of changes we have coming forward.
Yeah, so this report, good afternoon, Chair, Committee. This report provides an overview of the city's 2025 and 2026 snow clearing and ice control program, highlighting operational performance, service improvements, communications, financial results, and opportunities for continued enhancement. While the winter season experienced a slightly below average snowfall, it included more snowfall days, more high wind events, and greater operational demands than the previous year. The city met or exceeded most service level targets, maintained an overall customer level of service of good, introduced an enhanced snow operating map, providing near real-time sidewalk and pathway clearing information, and continue to improve operational transparency and reporting. The report also outlines several strategic initiatives to strengthen future service delivery, including rehabilitation of road salt and winter sand storage facilities, ongoing work to relocate the Wilkes snow disposal site, and efforts to improve compliance with residential parking bans through enhanced communications and public engagement. Finally, the report recommends separating the annual spring cleanup report from the snow clearing and ice control report beginning in 2026, allowing each program to be reported with complete and accurate performance and financial information.
Okay, well, I have questions, but folks, do you have any questions?
Yeah.
Okay, Councilor Chambers?
And thank you for the presentation, Michael. I did notice there was quite an improvement in terms of snow clearing this year. Only concerns that were brought up were, some of the back lanes, people still not understanding of windrows and back lanes, but other than that, it was, like I said, snow clearing was really good. The location that I continue to get feedback on is that Realwood place, where their front, they don't have a front street in front of them. Their houses face each other and there's a sidewalk in front of their houses from one side to the other. But their back lane is to be plowed as an enhanced because that's their actual, And so just to put on the public record that, this has been a continual or annual or yearly source of complaints arising from the area residents. that, you know, again, going forward, we can, put a plan in place to make sure that that area gets plowed in accordance to its service level.
Through the chair, Councillor Chambers. So is it a matter of the frequency, the timing of
There's no
the clear?
frequency, it's just, it is the plow that happens isn't, to the enhanced level where it's a bit wider than the actual street. So that cars and garbage trucks can get in there and navigate that area. And again, because of the fact that they don't have a front facing street, their lane becomes their front facing street.
Okay,
That's a good question. I wanted, what was the answer?
Well, it's been noted and
Through the chair, Councillor Edie, the question was related to the service for enhanced lane clearing on Realwood Place and
So it's a front street and a back lane?
yeah.
So, I have problems with Carruthers. I got, you know, every winter they're yelling at me. It is a street, it's wide enough, meets the criteria of a street, not a back lane. So I'm not understanding why it doesn't get the same snow clearance for a street, and part of it is, it does have residents on one side,
Yeah, very good point, and yes, the design of that lane is, we have a number of them in the city like that.
It's a street.
No, yeah, like we have a number of them that look like a lane, but are a street.
Yeah.
And that's some of the challenges. We had some changing information there mid-spring that was being communicated that the service was gonna change on for others. And you were taking that away, so.
yeah, we're continuing plowing it and accordingly, and we.
And there is still
And that
an
can be
access apparently on near Andrews and Carruthers, on Carruthers. Even though one changed, there's still one there.
Yeah, it's wide as a street, but functions as a back lane.
There's
There is a
residents on the residential side of Carruthers.
Yeah.
I'm not talking west of the CPKC line, I'm talking, there is still an address on Carruthers.
okay, well.
That's our farm, right?
And work that out offline. Do you ready?
Well, it's offline, I've been trying to work it offline for 8 years.
Well, Council, I'll follow up with you with an email and
Pardon me?
I'll follow up with you with an email. And
All right.
we can take it offline.
Just,
Okay, any questions? I've got some questions or comments. Councilor Sharma, anything? Councilor Chambers, anything? Nothing?
I
Okay.
do have one more question.
Okay, Councilor Edie?
Related to the transit master plan, and so within our snow policy, we do have that where bus routes where people are expected to transfer. I'm not just talking about the bus stops, but just the snow clearance at those intersections where people transferred in different buses. Is there, in this report, is there a summary of how the performance was this winter?
On bus stops?
No, but the transit master plan, I
Yeah.
had added in there as a policy, and yeah, Public Works has to implement it, but it's better snow clearing at intersections where people transfer buses. So for example, the 37 Jefferson bus meets D11 at Salter there.
Yeah.
And better clearance, no more windrows or whatever that could cause people to trip and fall into traffic as they're going to transfer to another bus.
Well, we clear windows at every crossing, every pedestrian crossing. Well, the intention is to clear every window and that being created from snow clearing, and every bus stop for the past, this is the second year, interaction teams are actually shoveling it after every event, beside the normal clearing that happens with the heavy equipment. So I'm not too sure about the enhanced clearing. Every barrier should be cleared as per the current policy.
So that is the.
Yeah, and
I didn't, depending, problem is at these intersections, you go in different directions, the way the plowing service works. It's all partly a timing thing and kind of dealing with that issue, right? But
Okay.
I just want to make sure that's approved. It's probably in the new transit standards, transportation standards, the accessibility for Manitobans too. Anyway.
Okay, so I have a couple questions here. Well, first of all, your plowing performance on page 6, table 2, okay? So, I don't know, I think that's pretty stellar. Percent complete on average within the target, that's what I'm understanding, right? Within a 36-hour target, your P1 street grader plows are 98% on average plow within the
Correct,
target,
within 36.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
So that that isn't, I still think we do the best snow and ice removal in North America, but I think that's fantastic. I know that the pathways, I think it's just been incredible. We've added more machines and now we have the ability to track and follow, and with that online.
EVL.
Yes,
Yeah,
it's just that's incredible. Like, I think that's great. Enhanced snow operations now. Yeah, AVL technology. I think that's fantastic. Finally, we've got our road and salt storage facilities. So you think that the contract is gonna be awarded this fall and it'll start in the spring? Do you think they'll finish like next year? It's just a 1-year job, right?
It is, and I hope to see that done once we secure a consultant for the design build assignment.
Yeah.
It's not something that's being done every year
No,
by many consultants, very unique
I know.
project to be done, so we're working.
I just drove by the, what is it called? The RM of Rockwood Yards across from Stony Mountain the other day, yesterday, and was, oh, look, they've got salt, they've got these same things, smaller scale, right?
Yeah, so the size is,
All problems.
the size matters. We have pretty
Here's a big-
large
I-
doors.
Yes. So that, I know that the, a lot of the contractors that we work with will like that, because right now it's in the open and it's lumpy and they don't like that.
Yes, however, we're working through those issues with any clumps and this year I haven't heard
Yeah, I didn't
any concerns about that. Yes.
So, okay, unintended there. Okay, the snow disposal site, that's interesting. So with the snow disposal site, like, it had to be moved because of the road closures on the perimeter, I get all that. What is the design part of it? Like, what are you designing?
Well, a snow dump needs to be designed properly, that you have the right drainage and the location of where you put the snow, how it's drained, the salt, the sand, sorry, and the salt being delivered.
Right,
So that needs to be drained through a retention pond.
right,
That's environmental aspect
Got it.
that needs to be done. And
Okay.
overall, the whole management of the site, where do you put the stone, where the staging? Do you bring those trucks in that they're not lined up too much on the road? All that, and there's a certain design to meet certain capacity.
and that's gonna be ready for this winter?
So we are still working with the province to know how much funding is being covered by the province due to this expropriation.
Right,
So that's being,
but do we think, like, we have to have that done open this summer or this winter, right?
we will manage to do 2 years without a proper site yet, this last 2 winters on the future site. So
Yeah,
we are already there,
yeah,
just not the proper design.
proper design, drainage.
Access into the road, and so we hope to, within the coming months, to know what will be the portion comes from the province, and we may need to ask for a budget to cover the rest. But we don't know how much.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of millions, and we don't wanna put in the budget numbers that before we have one. So we're waiting a bit on these discussions, which are happening these days.
Which snow dump is it?
That's the Wilson. So this new addition interests me, and I wanna know why you've included it. It's the communications. You're telling us how much you're doing on communications with snow, or that we, and I guess the thing, out of all the know your zone stuff, I'm curious to know 2 things. Number one, do people understand to park on the what do they call it?
Snow routes?
Snow routes. Do people know they can park on the snow routes? It's kind of tricky, right?
So we communicated about our communication because this is mainly to ensure that we have higher compliance when you have the bans, either the winter route or
Yeah.
the residential parking ban. This provides us a better chance to provide a better service on those roads with vehicles removed. And that's a good question that you're asking, and we are planning to put out 3 surveys.
Right,
The first 2, one statistical, one public, this fall,
right,
to ask exactly those questions. What are the challenges by residents today adhering to those bans?
so you're focusing on the bans.
On the residential parking ban mainly, to
Right,
see what are the challenges today, whether it's communication, whether it's the parking spaces. Do they know about the winter route? All these questions, we've designed a very detailed survey. One will be statistical by a consultant to run that, one will be a public one. And the third one, we hope to run in mid-winter, right after the residential parking ban, that will be asked the residents are coming to pay for the fine, to
right.
ask those questions, to answer those questions as well.
Okay, so it's great to do the survey. Are we going to be doing any marketing or I guess we aren't going to be doing anything this year? We're just going to do the survey, get the data.
We're still gonna try to put the postcards out, which we couldn't do this past winter because of the kind of post.
But that's only if the zone changes, right?
No, we do that when the zone changes, but we were planning to put out postcards to gauge, to ask residents to download the Know Your Zone app, to know their zone, just to trigger that, and we were doing it based on the kind of highest offenders areas.
Highest
Just-
offender areas.
Yes, just based on postal codes,
Right.
just to, get the best bang for our buck. So, but that didn't go out because of
That's
Canada.
kind of.
Didn't work out, and we hope to try it again this season.
Can you just email me what those postcards look like out of?
Yes,
I think
definitely.
I've seen one, but if you could
Yeah,
just
I
email
can
me
send
one,
it
that
to
would be great, okay? So no, I thought that was good, like that is the challenge, I think you have a postcard in here.
Yeah, it's
Oh, yeah.
underprint.
Yeah,
Okay,
there
it's
is,
fuzzy, I can't see
Yeah.
it. If
Yeah, I can
could
send you.
that'd be great. So, so that is, I'd say, probably one of the biggest challenges, would you say, is getting people to move their vehicles in the zone? When
it's
the-
definitely one of our biggest.
It's a big problem. Sorry, what did you say about snow routes?
During
We're
our,
not allowed to.
So
you're not
during the
allowed to
residential
use
park-
Jefferson, for example, and
Yeah. So we have changed the bylaw to allow residents to park on a winter routes during a residential parking ban. Just additional, when usually we don't allow residents to park on winter routes at all
that's coming
season.
up though. this
No,
year.
that was
last
in
year.
place last year.
Last
I
year,
know people got tickets.
But it has to be when the know your zone.
when we have a residential parking ban, we lift or suspend, the winter route parking ban, so people have more space to park at night.
So, but if they're still
Just doing
parked
that.
based on shift and stuff, so if you're still, I'm gonna use Jefferson, cause somebody.
Yep.
I think their vehicle was out there after the zone was done, they got a ticket. But it's their shift work.
Okay, so it depends where, if they were parking on a winter route during a residential parking ban, they probably didn't get any tickets because we were not enforcing it.
But, so I know a woman was very upset she did, so she should be able to fight that.
I'll be happy to get the details and we can figure it out, but
You'd have to, okay.
So then another question I had was in the performance reporting, this is good, color chart, good, very good, all that on page 13. The poor one is Winnipeggers receive fast responses to and resolution of snow and ice related questions, concerns and complaints. So I'm gonna assume that that's when they call 311, that's the results.
The results are on page 3 of the appendix A.
Yeah.
So it identifies percentage of snow and ice control related 311 cases due each year that were closed within the ESSA service level agreement. 61% were actually closed versus our target of 80%. So on that note,
61.
61, but however, it underrepresent our performance because it takes time for the clerks to close in the system. Until then, most of those are being addressed. So we have an administrative gap that actually underrepresenting
Right.
what actually happened there. And most of our cases that we have, number one service request in the winter is windrows within back lanes, which we don't do as per policy.
Yeah.
The other one is some snow clear requests on residential streets that if we analyze, I'm assuming is gonna be just before we come to plow at some point. And the last one is removing some windrows at frontages. So these are the most of our service requests are coming from, where the number one is actually not something that we do, and I'll look into that and see what we even accept those service requests as is it not as per policy.
Okay. And then, I mean, we have our budget, we have increased the budget, a bit over time. And where are we at right now with the budget? Have you brought that, I guess?
Well, we
to
still
the
have a few,
finance committee?
like the budget for this
Yeah.
year, we still have the 3 months.
Another half a
to go.
winter.
Yeah.
Right, okay. So what does an average citywide New Year's, what is a zone snowplow cost when we do the New Year's zones? What does that cost? Ballpark,
When we do the residential,
yeah, residential plow.
it's a big range.
Where's
It's
that?
could be between 3 to 6 million, depends how much snow
Depends how much
there's
snow
out there.
Yeah.
There's a factor that calculates and multiplied by the unit cost based on how much snow was there before we plowed. So
Right,
there's a big range.
okay. Okay, well, does anyone else have any questions on the annual report on snow clearing and ice control?
No, I just wanted to say, Mr. Cantor, I think they did a great job this year. Or, well,
The team?
the reporting period. And it was a crazy year because of the freeze thaw. Well, that's not, is that in this report?
Well, this is
First 3
the
months of this year?
2025 performance report.
That's 2025. So anyway, there. The report for next year, that was a huge challenge this spring. Oh my goodness.
No, I think it's good. Did you have something?
No,
Okay. Okay, so I think that Mr. Cantor, you've got a very hard job with the snow and ice and with potholes, and I think you're doing a great job with the resources that you have. And I thought the snow removal was, I just think you did a great job. So I'll say that. Okay, any motion to move the report? Councilor Edie, okay, Councilor Edie is going to move the report and the public service recommendations. All in favor? Carry.
Thank you.
Okay,
David.
good. Okay,
Okay, next report, then we'll move back to the Millennium Library Parkade High Priority Repairs Project Cost Benefit Analysis.
Yeah.
And just to keep in mind, this was a direction to come back with the cost benefit analysis outside of the original funded item back to the Executive Policy Committee and Council.
okay.
And with us here today, we have Randy Koplinski, the General Manager of WPA. We have Ajay Williams, Manager of Strategic Initiatives, and Lisa Patterson, the Manager of Facilities and Operations. And a few guest attendees, Jessica Hawkins and Ron Maxwell from Lisa's area as well. So there's 2 reports coming up on that. So,
Okay,
okay, Randy, as you gonna lead off? Yeah.
Great. As Jim mentioned, this report's being submitted as was directed by council as part of the 2026 budget. You may recall in 2024, similar analysis was done and presented to council on options for the Millennium Library Parkade in terms of long-term investment plans. So in 2024, as well as in the 2026 analysis, the same 4 options were looked at: repairing the parkade, building a new parkade, demolishing the parkade, or selling the parkade. So in 2024, the analysis showed over a 20-year timeframe when you consider costs and service level impacts or service benefits, that repairing the parkade offered the best long-term solution for the city. And in the updated analysis, it now shows that selling the parkade offers a better long-term investment for the city over a 20-year timeframe. So what changed between 2024 and 2026? You'll see in the report that several factors help explain this change. First of all, costs in the 2024 analysis were $2023. So those all got increased across the board for all options to $2026. So that's adding inflation year over year. Second, on a positive note, the revenue assumptions were updated. So the parkade, back when we did the analysis in 2024, netted about $750,000 a year. Now we're up to $1.1 million. So that resulted in greater long-term revenue loss under the demolish and sell options. Thirdly, we looked into the sell option a little bit more in terms of how practical could that be? Is it something that the city could pursue? We spoke with PP&D Real Estate, who said that it's not totally without risk, but it is something that the city could more reasonably consider doing. So the benefit assumptions related to the sell the parkade were more aligned with building a new parkade, assuming that somebody would buy the parkade and run it like a parkade and offer those services. But really, the most significant changes were due to the expected repair costs, which nearly doubled between the two timeframes when the analysis was done. So
wasn't it a class, what was class was it when you came to use?
Was the class 3 original one?
yeah, so good question. The first of the 3 repair projects is a class 3 estimate to repair the parkade. But the rest of the analysis that was done in 2024, as well as this analysis, is class 4. So they're not apples to apples in terms of the cost estimate, as well as in the 2026 numbers, the one project for the high priority repair project, we've gone through a lot of detailed design work. So it's at a class 1. So it's not 100% in the same level of design, but the best information that we had available to do the analysis. So those costs, essentially what happened when we went forward and with the council approved budget for the high priority repairs project, which was one of 3 projects that we had positioned in 2024, the only one that was funded. We hired an engineering firm, worked with municipal accommodations, and going from a class 3 to a class 1 project, identified costs were expected to increase by $8 million for that one project alone. So that brought the costs up. And as you'll see in the report, we're not asking for that cost to get covered through any budget adjustments, and we're managing within the existing budget. When you do that, we have to split the project into 2 for the high priority repairs. So you've got some additional costs for the repair for just by the sheer fact that you're moving it out a few years, deferring some of the work. So the inflationary role comes into play there. As well as it also, we can't afford with this option without getting the $8 million overage. We're making the assumption that we'll have to do another capital relife because as the report outlines, we can't afford to do a more sophisticated system for in the concrete where you can put anodes in it to stop deterioration. So with all of those things compounded, the repair costs have nearly doubled when you look at it over a 20-year time frame. So it's just really important to keep in mind that it is a long-term planning tool. All of those costs are not perfect. Like I was mentioning, they're different levels of class estimate, but it does give a good guide to see what should we be thinking about in the longer term with the city with this asset. And it does show that in the longer term, it could be worth exploring selling the parkade. But that's not listed as a recommendation in the report because that's a 20-year sort of view that we're coming back reporting on. What the report recommendations are to just receive that cost benefit analysis as information, but in the high priority repair project to reduce the scope of that project so that we can stay in budget and focus on the structural repairs. So what we really learned a lot more since the 2024 analysis is the instrumental role that the parkade plays in the library. So the parkade, half of it is underneath the library, half of it's underneath the park. So it serves as the foundation of the library. So we do need to move forward with structural repairs. We can stay within budget focusing on that. And that's really what that second recommendation in the report is saying, to keep the budget the same, but allow for just the structural repairs and defer things like the air handler unit to a future year. While not laid out in the recommendations of the report, in the body of the report, it does say that the intent of the public service is once these structural repairs are done, that we would come back to council with another report to just talk about the option potentially to release an expression of interest, test the market to see would anyone even be interested in buying this parkade. It's not something that we have any knowledge on whether someone would ever want to do this. So it's just really prudent since this analysis shows that to maybe consider looking into that in the future, but really the focus of this report is get the structural work done and maintain the structural integrity of the asset.
Councilor Eby?
Yeah, your cost benefit analysis, I mean, it's an estimate, right? You know, going for 20 years, but I mean, I don't know why a private person would want to buy it if it doesn't make sense for us. How does it make sense for a for-profit business? That's kind of interesting. And maybe we lose control of how much it costs for a parking space. But so with the structural repairs, what's the expected extension of life of the parking lot with the structural changes? Is the estimate going forward like 30, 40 years or?
Right now, the engineers that we're working with say 15 years is when you might have to do a re-life of the same project again. Because we
16?
15 years.
Oh, really?
So it may go
Major
longer.
structure changes.
Yeah, we're doing a process where we're removing the deterioration with high pressure water. It's called hydro demolition to take out the deterioration to try to make it last longer than that 15 years. But that's the best estimate from our current engineering firm is 15 years.
It's just maintaining it. It's not extending any life.
It's extending it by 15 years where you may have to do another structural work like this. We did similar work in 2013, 2014, and we're sort of at that time frame where we're redoing some of the structural work. It's because the concrete continues to get contaminated from road salt, so we're doing as much as we can to remove that factor from the parkade and dealing with it that way. But it'll continue to affect it.
Different than redoing the Louise Beach piers to concrete. Where they extend the life for 25 years or whatever, but okay.
So
Although it's not exposed to heavy salts, like you said.
The one thing that kind of piqued my interest here, maybe you could speak to it, is the air handler unit is past its useful life. And it's from 1974. So if the system fails, you say the parkade will close.
May close, likely it would close if it was affecting the ventilation for sure, because it's ventilating carbon monoxide. But we have talked with our municipal accommodations, and they have said that a lot of the parts we would be able to sort of stockpile. We're in the process of looking into that right now. But if there was like a big failure that they couldn't replace the part, that's just a reality that we have to be living with that risk and mitigating it as best as we can.
What's how much is an air handler unit?
It's about 4 to 5 million for the air handler.
And then the rest of like, how do you prevent these pieces of concrete falling?
Yeah, so because we're sort of
It's pretty difficult.
we did do removal of the concrete back in probably 2022 after the first condition assessment that we did. We do have some of Lisa's staff who walks through the parkade regularly, monthly, formally. And we've just started having quarterly reviews by Roger Kilgore, who's a structural engineering firm, to actually go through and make sure that there's no safety risks from an immediate basis. So we're taking those steps to make sure we catch those things before anything would become loose.
Wow. So then you're saying in 15 years, you look to see if there's someone interested? Or no, you look to see when you finish your structure?
Exactly, about 2028, when the structural repairs would be done. It might be a little bit before that, but we would submit a report to council to see if council's interested in us pursuing that or coming forward with an alternate plan just to continue repairing the parkade.
I see the revenue has increased, right?
But actually, wouldn't it not be, wouldn't you have to redo a cost benefit if you're out to 28? These calculations were done in 25 or early 26?
We use $2026 for
$26.
this one.
Okay. So the other items that need repairing, we're gonna do the structural and then we're just going to see if people want to buy it or not.
Yeah, focus on the structural, come back to council with a report to see if there's an interest to explore putting out an expression of interest, test the market. Is anyone even interested in buying it? That report could speak to what do the other repairs look like?
Okay,
What does that look like so that this council could have that option?
we're talking as well, Chair, another couple of years while that construction work of the concrete is being done. There can be lots of information being updated as to the performance of the
Yeah, and I mean, I guess if you do put it up for an interest, people want to know what, you know, kind of what else has to be done, right? So. Okay, well, okay, this is good. So do we have someone that wants to move this? I know it's. No one wants to move this? Councilor Sharma, do you want to move this?
Yes.
Okay, gonna move the public services recommendations that the cost benefit be received as information and we continue with the high priority repairs. All in favor? Carried.
item number 10, I believe it is.
No, I think it's eight.
Yeah, all 8. Yeah, well, you'll keep the same numbers. Paid parking sign changes. Essentially, we're looking for again, authorization to request the province of Manitoba's approval to use the trial payment required regulatory signs as enforceable traffic control devices on a permanent basis. We got here with us as well, Mr. David Patman, Manager of Transportation. And essentially, we were going through our 1-year trial of the sign changes there for paid parking. So I'll let Dave provide the preamble and recommendations.
Sure, I'll keep this really brief. Thanks to David Patman, Manager of Transportation. So the parking authority made a change to the payment system for parking. They've gone from the pay stations to an app-based system, but the signage that's throughout the downtown, throughout other places, is it shows a hand and a terminal machine. So we wanted to change that. So we changed it to say parking required, and then there's other signage that explains that you need to use the app. Because that was considered a change to the sign, you have to work with the province to do a trial of the modified signage using stickers. The trial is coming up for the end of that 1-year period. And so now to make that signage now the permanent change, you have to submit a letter to the province, to MTI, to give us the authorization that signage is now a permanent fixture in the city. And so it's a standard process whenever we change signs, and that's why I'm here to talk to that, because my area deals with signage changes. And we work with the province on that. We've done these pilots before. This is a routine process, and we just want to make it public.
And I think if I recall correctly, we did have a report come back on the app, how the app was working. I think I've seen numbers on the uptake on the app. Did we have a report on it at all?
Don't know if we included, I know Lisa's here, she can probably speak to it.
Yeah, I think we had the update in the anyways, I'll leave it.
No, I want to know, did we have an update in something?
That was around
it's in the business. It's in the
Oh,
business
it is,
plan.
it's flat.
Yeah.
Okay, I knew I saw it, so something, so, okay, good, okay. So yeah, so this is standard process, we have to do this. Okay, so, can I have a motion please from someone? Oh, sorry, Councilor Reed's got a question.
I have a question.
Okay.
So I want to get the full specs on these signs. So frankly, people who can't see don't care about what's on the sign. We're not driving either, but what's the specs? Because I know the parking authority has installed signs that are at face level on the
height spec,
sharing the sidewalk. So I want to know height. I want to know, how low they're going to come down, that sort of thing. So what's going to be the full spec on installation of these signs?
Well, traffic signs in general, except where there's a combination or a culmination of many signs. The lowest sign is generally 6 foot to the ground from the base of the sign.
It's supposed to be a universal design guidelines, 7 feet at the bottom.
Yeah, no, well, there's a combination there, because when you're talking about roadway traffic signing and then pedestrian access signing, they have 2 different measurements. So it's higher if you're on the sidewalk and lower if you're on the roadway.
If it's on the roadway.
If it's on the roadway, correct, yeah.
But
not all signs can be installed because of what other infrastructure's in there. So some signs are actually placed higher, but generally not focused on anything lower than
6 feet tall, right? So someone who's 6 foot tall or over. Who can't.
On the
see.
sidewalks, it's supposed to be 7, on the roadway it's 6.
Right, okay. So, right, it's not my experience out there, Jim.
There's somewhere we have challenges with placement of signs because there's many signs to be put in one spot. And we can't have them 30 feet in the air either, so.
No, I understand people need to see the signage and stuff like that, but, you know, they're made of metal. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't want
Yeah,
to
we
bang
don't
it
need
in.
to
And they
put
cut
the
skin,
signs
just,
together.
you know, they do cut skin.
Okay,
Anyway, I was just curious about that.
can I have someone to move the report, please?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Thank you. River Road reclassification and streets bylaw. This was laid over 1 month while the ward councillor had some time to talk to the community. And so we're back here a month
Yes,
later.
sir.
We've already communicated the report. We didn't get any
Yeah,
negative.
he's okay with it?
He says he's okay with it. He had some questions about the speed, but we can discuss this one.
Okay, all right, so can I have a motion to?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Item number 11.
Conversion of traffic signals at Elm Street and Grosvenor Avenue to a pedestrian crossing.
I was asked if this could be laid over because the council wanted to check in that the schools involved had a chance to comment on this. So if we could ask for, I could ask for the 30-day layover.
I'll move layover.
Yeah,
This is Councilor Rollins.
No.
No,
Councilor.
No, sorry, what's the school? Is it Kelvin?
no.
Grosvenor. I think.
Oh,
Yeah.
Grove.
I'll move layover.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Item number 12 is a speed limit on Arlington Street from Portage Ave to Wellesley. That was Cindy Gilroy talking about wanting speed reduction. But the report shows the speed is low. Or lower than the 50K, so.
Yeah, so they were saying that the transit policy they put into the drivers to tell them to have like a speed order. That's how we're dealing with this right now.
Yeah, and we had Mr. Vanku here earlier today and he had confirmed that his drivers are staying within their speed limit, so. I mean, we all have streets like this, right, where they actually are driving less than the speed, but yet if you're walking on the street, it feels like you're going faster, but. So I think we need to receive this report as information, which is
I'd be
a
willing,
recommendation to public service, so,
I would be moving such.
okay, Councilor Reedy, I'll.
So
Yeah.
if you indulge me here, so they did a speed study and had determined that percentage of the vehicles are lower than closest speed limit.
100%. Yeah,
Okay.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried.
Okay, next report is access to a proposed residential building located at 314 Region Avenue West. And we've received an application for a proponent to build a 3-meter wide private approach on 314 Region Avenue West. The proposed private approach does not meet city requirements as per the private access bylaw 49 2008 sections 19C and 19E, as well as the complete communities direction strategy 2.0 goal 2 policy 2.16. For those reasons, the public service does not recommend approval of the application. Therefore, that the private access application on the south side of Region Avenue West as located in the site plan and Appendix A, which is attached, not be approved. And if you want to put it in context for 314 Region Avenue West, essentially that long block of Region Avenue West, it has, I think it's 3 legacy approaches that are front approaches that were
There's a
built
very small number that
decades
have
ago.
The access to the.
Yeah, that's
road.
the map you should put in instead of.
What is the purpose of the building?
It's the house.
Yeah, this is residential. This is a portion of Region Avenue, which is all residential. And essentially the property owner has it's a back lane access. Currently has a back lane access with an older single car garage, and they're proposing to put in a brand new entrance right off of Regent Avenue at the front and be able to use the driveway all the way to the back garage.
Almost every house on that block has the driveway going to the back lane. This one wants to shoot it out to the street side.
Yeah, there's only 3 properties within that long block that have legacy approaches. The rest are all back lane access.
And are they multifamily?
No.
Family homes.
These are all single.
Yeah.
So what's their access street off of Region West to get to the back lane? Is that like?
I'm looking at, it's Region Avenue West.
Yeah, I got it west, so that's, it starts at Day Street, it goes west, numbers get higher towards the inner city, so.
Yeah, correct.
So I'm just trying to figure out what that cross street is, I gotta turn on to come up the back lane.
You've got Madeline.
Madeline,
Yeah, and you've got Winona on the other side.
Oh, okay. So there's access to the back.
Oh, yes, no, there's,
Everyone else is using the back lane. This one house wants to be different and wants a long driveway through the middle of the property.
Yeah, I get it.
Okay, well, isn't there one property already that has a front?
there's 3, 308, 346 and 350 west.
Yes.
But in general, we try to keep them all the same as much as possible. That's PP&D's point of view, and that's Public Works
So I think
system point of view.
the 2 with the front approaches are on opposite sides of the street.
There's 2 on the same side on the south side and 1 on the north side.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, I'll move the Public Services recommendation.
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay.
What was the public?
They were not
To not
recommended.
approve the,
Okay,
not
yeah.
approve the lane, okay. Now we're on the pedestrian scramble pilot.
Right, so we've completed the year-long review of this scramble. It didn't have major operational issues, but because of the very low volumes of pedestrians on it, we're recommending not to proceed with this, not to keep it running, just to revert it back to the way it was before. Cities that have scrambles in other parts of the world and other parts of North America, typically you want to see like 2,000 pedestrians an hour. Lots of pedestrians, so they need to keep moving.
We've been done to do all this.
Well, we didn't want to say
There's lots of drama.
there was some drama on this, and we were looking for a place to put it downtown where we get a lot of visibility. It's close to City Hall. So there were no major operational issues. There were no major complaints, except for people were saying that some people said that the chair audibles were noisy. But that's an issue with audibles rather than a specific location. So we went through the process. All right. It is what it is. We have this in our toolbox, but right now we're not looking to do any more of these right now. No further pilots.
Like, it just amazes me when there's so much drama and hot air around an item, and then no one shows up to talk about it when it's scrambled, when the pilot's done. It's some sort of disappointing. But anyways, Councillor Eady, question?
Just the evaluation period was from when to when again?
I believe it was June to June.
Yeah.
So June last year, no,
June 2026.
June 25 to June 26. So it was implemented, when does the jazz festival, when does the jazz festival?
In June. 10th.
So it was already in place when the jazz festival started in 25?
Yeah, it's implemented on June 2nd, and the jazz.
Oh, yeah, the jazz festival.
There was a major launch when the thing opened. We gave people free breakfast if they would do some feedback with us, and so we're handing out breakfast sandwiches.
Yeah. Anyway, so it had the Fringe Festival, all those things were going on in this measure. The only reason I ask is, so you were saying 2,000 pedestrians or whatever. Anyway, I just wanted to know, I kind of knew it was there, but I mean, with some of these things, they did close off parts of King for certain times, right?
Yeah, but this was going throughout the whole year. It wasn't just one weekend where it was like construction or something like that. This is actually, in terms of the number of pedestrians, this is actually a fairly heavily used pedestrian intersection in the downtown. I it might seem like a weird comment to make, but there's more pedestrians going through this intersection on a daily basis than Portage and Main.
Yeah, well, yeah,
So it's like,
yeah, for sure.
Crazy talk, but that was what was revealed. So there aren't a lot of locations in Winnipeg where the pedestrian numbers are hitting that 2,000 an hour threshold. And
Well, wouldn't it be like the original proposal was to test it out at River and Osborne.
yeah,
There's a lot of pedestrians there.
But still no 2,000 an hour.
It's not 2,000.
2,000.
no, there are no locations in Winnipeg,
No.
2,000.
Winnipeg, that's
No,
only inside malls do we have 2,000 people.
So if you get a chance to go to Tokyo, Japan and visit Shibuya Crossing.
yes, that's the famous one.
Okay.
Did it in 2017. It's a thing of marvel to see that
That's
many
very
people
impressive.
move in an hour, 100,000 people an hour move in that location, so.
Anyway, I used that intersection the same old way I always used it. So. And, okay.
Okay, so can I have a motion to receive this as information, please?
So moved.
Counselor Chambers, great. Okay, all in favor?
Uh,
Okay, number 15.
Okay, the public service is requesting extension on this.
Sorry, which one is this? Sir?
This is a traffic study of Northtown Road in Keniston Boulevard.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this one came in January of 2026. This is the one where the crash, where multiple cars have been crashing into this, I'm gonna call it a garage wall, because they seem to stop there. Right by a daycare where kids play on the other side of the wall. And we waited 180 days, which is 180 days. Now you want another 300. So I hear you, you don't have someone, or you've got, you're short on staff.
yeah, there's a vacancy in the branch that handles these, and they've only just been able to hire, go through the hiring process to get someone to work on this. But we are internally discussing what the solution is. We
Yeah.
think we have some ideas in progress. We think we know why the issue is happening, but we need to finish the report on it,
Right.
so.
Okay, so Mr.
Yeah.
Patman, I'm not gonna be here come October, after October, right?
Right,
I don't wanna wait 300 days.
we'll say within, if we can say within 300 days, but we're the area is just, it's busy and they got a lot of projects.
That's within 180 days, that's like 6 months.
Let's
And we
try,
already had 180 days.
yes, let's
That's
try
like-
180 days.
Okay, we make a change to 180 days.
It's like everything done.
Thank you,
I
man.
don't know, yeah, nothing ever all gets done, but.
Well, Keniston's a very dangerous street. It should
Yeah,
be high on the
it's-
priority
it's,
when somebody's in place to look at
Dangerous
this.
word.
We think the issue is partially, we've been talking about why is this happening, what's going on. We think because you're coming into a busy area, it's it feels like more like a highway type road.
Well,
And
it
you're entering an urban area. We think people see the green light and they're still driving at the speed. The highest speed, like 80 coming in, and then they want to turn left. And then they are skidding and slipping and going off tracking into that fence.
So it could be
You're
expeditious.
you're referring to Northtown and Keniston.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes, northbound.
That's northbound. Yeah.
So, okay, so that
180
is the
days.
problem, right? Like you put those yellow flashers up so people can slow down because then people can cross the street. It's such a commercial area in between a split really freeway, but
Yeah, we're looking at different options and what might be acceptable or might be an issue.
well, what would an option be?
Reduce the speed coming in.
Yeah.
Put up those warning flashes and just
Right.
have people slow
If
down
you
as they
do
enter
from
that.
Northtown to Southtown and reduce the speed on that strip on both sides, like I'd wait 300 days, but
So this is the challenge in this area, and they designed this couplet, it was more like Keniston.
yeah,
And it's actually more should probably be a little slower speed limit on, it, but
Yeah.
then you'll probably have people still wanting to go at the highest speed.
well, they will because
Because they're trying to bypass this area,
it's a vision.
they are like a local traffic and.
Okay, so if we do 180 days, and we'll wait till you come back and
We'll wait,
I'll still have our own.
Yeah,
vote,
we're
okay.
not trying to keep the can on this, but we're trying to come up with a
Okay.
solution.
All right,
So-
okay,
So moved, Madam Chairperson.
thank you very much,
180.
Councilor Reedy, all in favor? Anyone opposing? Carried. Okay.
Item number 16, active transportation connection from Karen Park to the Perimeter Highway Bridge.
Yeah, so the public service has talked to the council about this. There will be some challenges making this work. We will have to talk to the province on it, but we get this idea of having areas that want to connect to each other, and the only infrastructure to connect them to the bridge is the Perimeter Highway Bridge.
And they put in a sidewalk on the
Yeah.
bridge, so that's like.
So it's like, how do you get to that sidewalk, the grades, we're gonna have to look at that, we're gonna have to look at some details, but there are some pathways in the area.
So is there a pathway on the north side of the Assiniboine? Like, it looks like there's a big.
You
design
just,
lane.
you go down to Oxbow Bend Road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is there-
there's a little, yeah, the same as on the south side, where the south side, it's a little more predominant. But then you just cross over and people either go walk directly down the grade, right to the bottom or the underpass area. Or they just walk a little bit further and they go down the side to where the gardens, garden pull
So he's looking at a more like, you know, not this little cow trail thing that's currently.
Something a bit better than the goat path kind of thing, but our challenge is gonna be the grades.
The grades, the.
Yeah, and just the maintenance of it, so.
and provincial right away.
Yeah,
And provincial right of way, yes.
but we're gonna come up with something as a proposal and shoot it back to him, and that's.
So this same scenario exists on the south perimeter over the Red River to Maple Grove Park and Kilkenny.
And had progress being made with some other locations along the perimeter, so this is sort of a missing segment, so yeah, we are taking a look at it.
Which was mind blowing when they put in that roundabout at St. Mary's, they put active transportation in there, like.
Yes,
I mean,
yeah.
that was like years we lobbied them on the floodway to put a sidewalk on the bridge or just something, and then they just did, it was amazing.
Well,
It was-
with a lot of our support and effort.
Yeah, like a lot of input from.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's just beautiful, like it's beautiful, okay,
So we're saying 180 days for this one.
okay.
Maybe we point out that we did do this a long time ago at Kildonan Golf Course.
Yes,
Park
yes,
on
right.
the Chief Pegulas, right?
Right,
Yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly, right.
Yeah, so it's something that's really needed in order for people to move I'll move up to 180 days.
Yeah,
Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, turn signal.
next one's a request for a tin signal, like a protected tin signal from Cargill to Keniston.
Now, again, where are we getting these not sent to 311?
I think it might be just the time of it's getting close to the election, they want to have the motions to get the visibility of
No,
it.
I think they just forget. Like, people remind me all.
We do issue reminders, this one, like, these are the addendum reports, it's not like you've had a week to talk to the council about
Which one
it.
is this?
Well, no, I'm just saying, Councilor Edie, that, you know,
Is this 17?
we're supposed to use
Yeah.
311 to, you know, for phasers like this or stop signs, or isn't that the idea?
They want them to be public, often when we are doing them internally, they can be, we will say,
Yeah,
we're taking a look at it and the answer is no.
Chair, just make sure you're differentiating between traffic signal requirements, which is committee approval versus traffic calming.
Is this a left-hand turn?
Yeah, it's just a left-hand turn. So they've got a storage lane on Corridon to turn onto Route 90. They don't have a left turn signal to turn southbound on Route 90.
I'm sorry.
Westbound Corridon has a left turn storage lane.
It's permitted,
But
but
it-
not
So you
But
still
it's
need
not
to
that-
study the amount of traffic that wants to go left though before you do that.
yeah, that's part of the analysis. So yeah, anytime there's a change to a signal, we bring them through, we'll write a report on.
okay,
So you need how many days?
We'll say 180 days. for that.
180 days. Well, yeah, you're.
They've just so everybody knows that the committee has asked.
So you want 90 days, so we'll do it 180, if that's okay for people? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Okay, did you hear Councillor Gilroy talk about Downing Street at Yarwood Avenue and
Yes.
a bunch of four ways? I have a feeling that was put in an area where we didn't, did we study them as well, or what?
Perhaps, I don't know all the history of all the four-way stops, but looking at the low volume on these streets, normally we probably would say no to this, but the case is being made about the use of this as a way to get to the school, so we'll take a look at that.
Okay,
You're gonna look at it now, you have an idea? Do you have an idea what the traffic
We will,
is on,
I'm gonna say it's very low on both of those corridors, it's,
for both vehicle and pedestrian?
yeah,
okay, so you'll look at it
we'll
and
look at it and report back.
she's got 60 days, but you want 180?
Yeah, I'll say 180.
Okay,
And I'll say within 180.
within 180, okay?
Okay,
Clerk,
so moved,
all in favor? Carried. Okay, Aaron Avenue, Ellis and Aaron, this is that.
This is the bakery where they had a couple incidents in a row and then it was in the media. And we've taken a look at it. The public service has made some changes to the area. But they went the council is asking for, put a police camera in the area and change the speed limit on Ellis. On one hand, I'd say receive this information as we already have made some changes. If we wanted to do a big shiny report, we could take this away and put the report and say what we've done and talk about in more detail.
I'm sorry, what did you do there?
We basically modified the timing of the signal. And we moved the signal heads, or I believe there was some modification made to one of the signal heads because it was sort of being blocked by another signal head. So we made some changes to the geometry a little bit with the signal heads for the traffic signal to make it clear to motorists that they need to stop. They think the fact that there was a number of incidents in a row was like back-to-back incidents. There was sort of like get these blips in it. It's not like this intersection is way different to any other intersection in that area.
Crashing into the childcare facility, like something.
Anyway,
The idea is to put bollards in, but the city doesn't want to get into doing bollards everywhere because that would be an expensive proposition and maintenance would be.
So I mean, you could recommend that if the business wanted to, like I have many businesses that put bollards.
They're
I had to-
Goodies Bakery, it's tight at that.
Oh, you
Yeah, one of the challenges is
Right at back of the sidewalk.
Well, I
Is that, I mean, for businesses, their variances off the street are minimal.
Those were, those were from decades.
Yeah. I do think that Councillor Gilroy would like to have a report back on this one, that maybe you put the number of collisions there, what you've done. And the constraints that you have in relation to bollards and back to the.
Yeah,
report.
okay, well, we'll report back in 80 days.
180 days. Wow.
yeah,
I think it's 180 days.
We'll attempt that, yeah, because like I say, you've already got some.
you don't know how your changes are performing yet.
We'll report where we are at, and then there might be a subsequent follow-up report that would say how the changes. Like what impact it had, if any, but the first thing to do would be to report back to say, here's where we're at.
Mhm.
So that would be the initial report. If we had like, say, a go forward strategy of one or more options, that's where we put them in that report. Thinking about a future report down the line.
Okay, so shall we, and you got 180 days on this report and maybe whatever it takes, I guess.
I'm willing to move that.
Okay, you wanna move that, Councillor Beatty? All right, all in favor? Carried. Okay, so do we have any more, no new business,
You've
anything?
done 20 already?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, we did 20, that was fine, yes.
None.
Yeah, okay, motion to adjourn at 2:43.
Adjournment.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Carried. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Good day.
Okay.
Too late.